Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let me make sure my audio is working this time so I don't talk for 3 minutes like last time. I think it is working. Good to see everybody. We are going over young Kirky Boy's not his, I think he's done more than 2 debates probably, but this is the second one we're going over. It was on Horseradish. I'm not going to tell you if he won or lost, although I do know the answer to that question, but maybe Kirk will tell you. He's in the back chat, so we're going to bring him in a second. He's going to be live reacting with us, telling us maybe what he could have done better or what he thinks went so horribly awry. Okay, so we'll try to find out. Good to see you, Rage Page. This is a good intro. Thank you. First one to fully appreciate it. Good to see you, Elder Lion, Blue Jay Fluids. Not joking. How you guys doing? If you want to join, you can click the link that's pinned to the top of the chat. It's also in the description. If you think about it, we were watching this on IG's channel because the Horseradish's OBS like shit the bed, and so we can't watch it on his. So IJ was judging, and he was streaming it. So that's how we're able to get this footage. So shout out IJ and shout out Horseradish, obviously, for hosting this debate in the first place on his usual Friday night debate little show. It's a very, very good show. Everyone should check it out. Good to see you, cool
just
kid.
to clarify, I did lose the debate, and in the sense that technically they voted against me, but I think that my arguments were pretty solid. And also, I did. This is the fact that you keep calling me Kirky Boy, even though I've told you I feel kind of dysphoric with regards to my gender identity, kind of I think says something about your character.
Wow. Casting aspersions already, Kirk. Are you trying to distract me from the fact that you got absolutely destroyed in this debate?
No, I mean, if I like you can keep calling me something that you know I don't like. Like it's.
I've been calling you. You can't just have a nickname that you allow for like so many times and then expect that I'm going to be able to change that. I don't have that. I don't. It's like when it's also when you say call someone like a guy. Like you'll call a girl a guy, right? And so you could call anybody a boy, right? It could be like boy like that. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like I told you, I felt.
Why does everything have to be about gender with you, Kirk? Okay.
Not everything's about gender, but I'm just telling you it's a boundary that I set up, and it's kind of rude for you to not,
Oh yes, Kirk, the famous respecter of boundaries. What the fuck?
I am. What do you mean?
You're gonna bring up boundaries.
What do you mean, Confluence?
What do you mean? What do I mean?
What do you mean?
Play out yesterday with Kesty. I think that was yesterday with the Ice Bean stuff and all of that. I'm just saying to bring up boundaries is crazy. Okay, your reputation precedes you, Kirk. Okay, it does. But I mean, I could try to think. I mean, Kirky. Yeah, I don't know. They're all kind of gender neutral. I'm thinking. I'll have to. I mean, I can try to think of another nickname for you, Kirk. But
you could just say Kirky Kid.
Kirky Kid? It just doesn't hit the same as Kirky Boy,
Cool Kid Kirk?
I'll take it under consideration.
You could just say Cool Kid Kirk?
I'm definitely not saying Cool Kid Kirk. But maybe I'll say Cool Kid Kirk, please. Yeah, like that's at least
so why not have that as my nickname? Just Cool Kid Kirk, please.
It's a very long nickname, I suppose. It's like 4 whole words. Good to see you, Lobster. Yeah, Kirky Kid is gay. That's the problem.
I don't really feel comfortable with being a boy. Like I want to wear women's clothing and I want to say therapist for all that. So like if it's about
can I call you Kirky Goy? Does that work?
Well, given the fact that
come on, Kirky Goy. Let me say that then.
But my grandpa's Jewish, so it's not really accurate because my grandpa is Jewish. So I'm
right, but you're not like fully Jewish, so it's not, and it ties into the no.
But given that I'm the most Jewish, I'm the most Jewish person on the panel, it just wouldn't.
Well, that's why it's funny. That's why it's funny. Kirky Goy is stinking. Okay, I'm sorry. You can't just catch lightning in a bottle like that and not use it. How's it going, Big Soda?
How's it going, guys?
How about Kirk Dirk? How about Kirky Durkey? Kirky. No. Oh, how about this? Kirky Turkey.
Derby Kirky.
Kirky Turkey.
No, I think Kirky Goy. That's good. I'm sorry. You were even laughing, Kirk. It's good. That was just off the dome.
Before we start, I did have a question about psychology, if that's okay.
Sure, why not? It's 2026.
So, have you ever heard of Thomas Zaz and the anti-psychiatry movement?
No, I mean I know about anti-psychiatry. I don't know about Zaz though.
Have you heard of him?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So he was a psychiatrist of secular Jewish heritage, and he was very critical of psychiatry and said that it was kind of authoritarian because following someone like Wittgenstein, he said that there's not really this private mental state, whereas our mental states are public and behavioral, like Wittgenstein's language games. And so he was very critical of like the mental health for operating on like a Cartesian model where there's this internal self that has these mental disorders. So he's very critical of mainstream psychiatry.
That is a very confusing reason to be against mainstream psychiatry. Like, I don't know if his reasoning it just feels weirdly convoluted. Like, I don't even really know to tie it into Wittgenstein. Like,
Wittgenstein's criticism is that the criticism is that Wittgenstein argued there can't really be a private language, so it's an anti-Cartesian view of meaning.
Right.
And so it's basically saying that because mainstream psychiatry tries to diagnose in their mental states as if they're diseases, it's wrong because it's treating something that's really more like a behavior, like it's an internal disease.
Right, but then what do you do with someone who has like, I don't know, like bipolar, who has like actually like something chemically going on? You know, I understand with like some things, like with anxiety or depression, in at least most, if not all cases, right? It's like fair to see that as like something that is, well, not all, but you know what I mean? In a lot of cases, most cases, right? It's not going to be the chemical balance comes after the depression, not vice versa, in my opinion. But with stuff like schizophrenia, like these are things that you can like see on brain scans. These are things that are like physical stuff happening in the brain. And so it doesn't really matter if I don't get the jump from language is private to these things have to be treated only, or like that, sorry, that language is not private, and therefore then internal brain states, and we can't make any inferences on that, and everything just has to be like solved via fixing behavior.
He would say that you can say that like there are neurological conditions that affect the brain as like neurobiological things, but like the thing with psychiatry is it's not just studying neurobiology. When you're talking about actual like mental states that are not neurobiological, then you are just talking about behavior, and in which case you can't diagnose it like that. So he would say that like a neurological condition that is like a chemical imbalance, that can be treated, although practically speaking, most psychiatrists don't know what they're talking about when it comes to that because they overprescribe SSRIs, for example. But when you're talking about like mental illness, like outside of the neurobiological context, yeah, that is kind of a myth.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess I don't see. So would he give someone with like a bipolar lithium? Because that is something that's not diagnosed with brains. Right, but it's not diagnosed that way. It's diagnosed symptomatically, right?
So well, then if that's the case, I think he might oppose that. I think he might, but I don't know.
He just like loses me there. Like I get a critique is that these mental conditions are reified, right? That's why the DSM is constantly changing, and you could be right. Like I understand we're making these things real that aren't like we're concretizing them in a way that is a bit unjustified because we're taking clusters of symptoms and we're saying you have this type of syndrome based on that. And so I guess it's not the same as saying that someone has like cancer or diabetes or something where it's diagnosed, those things are diagnosed through like physical tests. But it seems still helpful to recognize that there is groups of people that have these symptoms and they are suffering in some mental way. And then to see what treatments will alleviate that suffering or make them live better lives. Like that seems kind of incontrovertible to me. But the controversial part is what is fixing. Does an SSRI help? I think not usually.
But that's the thing. Right? So I would agree on that. With regards to Wittgenstein's private language argument, if you say that there's some like internal state that's like messed up, you're positing something that can't be like externally verified in a language game, right? Because that's the thing is that if you're saying that this mental state is not neurobiological, then by definition it has to be behavioral, or else it's nonsense.
Right, but just because something's not diagnosed based on a biological test doesn't mean it's not biological, right? Like you can diagnose something symptomatically. You don't like we know from other stuff that people with bipolar, right? They have chemical imbalances, but it's not like when you go see a psychiatrist, they're like testing the levels in your brain and then giving you a diagnosis. But we know that the people who have these symptoms generally will have a chemical imbalance. So I think we can infer that the chemical imbalance is happening and then, diagnose accordingly. And because the whole argument seems strange that you can't why couldn't you trust someone's internal states if they're telling you, hey, yes, I do these behaviors and I think these thoughts, like just someone who has schizophrenia, they're like, I'm seeing hallucinations. Like, they're communicating that to you. Now it's not just a private thing in their head. They're telling you this, and you're like, okay, you're seeing hallucinations. Well, we know that this medication might help you stop seeing hallucinations. To use like a very rudimentary example, like I don't know what the criticism of that would be.
Well, that's the case. I don't think Zaz would
is
say
seeing hallucinations. Like that's not a behavior you can really change.
No, hold on. I don't think Zaz would say that if something can be communicated from in a language game, I think he would say that yes, that is something that is a legitimate area for psychiatrists. But that would be like that would be if there is more objective criteria. But I think what he's saying is that there's a lot of more like biological reductionist criteria in modern psychiatry in general.
I'm getting distracted by all the names that I'm seeing.
Does that make sense?
I can't believe it won't let me type in Osama.
Does that make sense, Confluence?
Can you say it again? I'm sorry. They're distracted.
I was saying he was saying that a lot. He was saying that a lot of modern psychiatry is based on biological reductionism, and that's mistaken.
Yes, I agree with that. It just seems to be taking it too far, unless you're presenting it in a way that's maybe too far. But if
I might be misinterpreting him. But yeah, I'll send that. Where should I post this in the Discord? I'll send you a Wikipedia page that talks about this, kind of.
Yeah, just send it in the research.
Okay.
No, that last one was a good one.
Whoopi Kirkberg? What?
No, the one before that one.
Kirk Obama or Osama Kirk? John Wayne Kirky?
No, yeah, that one.
You got a lot to pick from.
Kirk, don't feel bad about your nickname. Ask Confluence what my nickname for him is.
Yeah, he calls me Connie Boy.
Well, I am curious, Confluence. If I was when can I ask you a kind of I've asked you if you were trans woman, you said you would still date a woman, right?
Yeah, if I because I don't unless that changed my sexuality, but as my sexuality is currently,
would you be like would you want to be like a trad wife, like a housewife?
I don't know.
Basically?
That's a weird question.
Like a devoted conservative Christian trad wife.
As far as I don't know if I would. You're asking if I was trans, would I ascribe to the typical gender norms of females? I'm not sure.
But I'm asking if you were trans, would you want to be a trad wife to like a lesbian partner?
I don't. It's not something I've really thought about.
But if you had a guess,
I don't really know. I feel like you're asking me this question because you want me to ask it back to you. I'm not going to do that.
Well, if I was a trans woman, I don't know if I'd want to be
I'm not going to do that. I said I'm not going to do that.
No, but I'm telling you, if
that's your number, Kirky Guy. I know that's why you're asking me this.
No, I'm not asking for a number. I'm saying if I was a trans woman, I don't know if I would want to be a trad wife, but maybe.
Oh, the Kirkfluence is wild.
Sorry, didn't need in time.
Yeah, how about that's my nickname, Kirkfluence?
No,
absolutely not.
There will be no confluence of your two entities.
Yeah, that'd be terrible.
How about Kirk?
Enough delaying, okay? I mean, I haven't seen this debate, obviously, because I don't pre-watch, but I have been told that you did lose 3-0. Okay.
Oh, fuck. Is this on
both
Horseradish?
of the judges? Yeah, this is on Horseradishes. And so we're gonna see if it's fair or not. If we're gonna see.
I take it that's a socialist.
I wrote like capitalist in the thing, but I actually don't know if this person is a socialist. I'm just assuming if they're on the affirmative that removing profit motive would improve certain products and services. The problem is this is a weird prompt because all they have to argue it's certain products or services. So all they really have to do is show one product or one service that could be removed with the lack of a product motive. That's a very small.
Well, I kind of got prompt cucked, and part of the reason I lost was because I thought they were arguing the removal of the profit motive in general, whereas I was arguing against it. I was saying it's okay in general, but they're saying they're against it in specific circumstances. And yeah, in the prison system, I'm against the profit motive. So like I kind of got prompt cooked here. But this is like Wittgenstein's point that language is contextual, and so like because I thought the connotation in this context was the removal of it in general, I got prompt cooked.
I mean, see, I don't know if you could say you got prompt cooked is like, to me, that's when there is like ambiguity, but this is, if you just read it, it's pretty clear. Like it does say certain product. I mean, that's the thing I just noticed that I pointed out now before we even started, you know, like it's not saying all, it's not saying most, it's just saying certain. So all they have to do is point to one product or service. And I guess you're saying they pointed to the prison system, which, yeah, that's probably a good one. We probably should not have private prisons in my opinion. So, I mean, I understand that Horseradish sends the prompts and then you just like give your opinion on it. So I get how this could happen, but
well, I don't know.
I can see this going bad.
But I am curious, Confluence. What do you think about my nickname, Kirkenstein?
Oh boy, he could.
Good to see Mara.
Yeah, that's a good nickname.
Kirkenstein.
Yeah.
Kirkstein at least kind of sounds like Epstein, I guess. So
Kirkbird.
You know, Kierkegaard's kind of funny.
Kierkegaard, yeah, definitely.
But Kierkegaard just has the staying power. I don't know. Just, you know, when you say something and you just know, man, I fucking killed it with this one. That's the experience I had with Kierkegaard. So
you could do Donkey Hokirk.
Donkey Hokirk, how about that?
Or something with peeping.
It will always be
Kirk.
Kirky Boy.
It doesn't really work.
It will always be Kirky Boy.
Kirky Boy is just, it's a hard ask that you're asking me, Kirk, to, you know, especially because you're tying it into the gender stuff. And now you're making me feel like I have to affirm you by not saying, I don't know. It's just a weird position.
If I don't really feel comfortable with the masculine gender identity, for you to use masculine gender terms for me is a little bit rude.
Again, I just want to point out the irony of Kirk talking about boundaries. So to point that out. Okay.
I mean, you as a cis man want to be affirmed in your identity, right?
No, I don't really care.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
How do you feel if someone referred to you in feminine ways and you were forced to wear clothes like girls' clothes and makeup and stuff? Like you wouldn't feel comfortable.
I'm not forcing you to wear anything or do anything. Okay. But you see all the fluences I get in the comments. It's always something fluence, usually something untoward fluence, you know. So I'm no stranger to untoward nicknames, and your nickname's just normal.
I mean, to be fair, it's kind of oppressive.
Yes, I do have
but I still have to.
Yeah, Kirk is definitely AI. Good to see you, Gunnar.
Well, Kirk is, but not Kirk.
Yeah, but
Kirk, we can't be shipping. See, this is the kind of shit I have to deal with, Kirk. Be thankful
Kirk
you get Kirky
Cobain.
Boy. I was thinking Kurt Cobain, but that's an insult to the real Cobain. So you know.
That's true. That'd be like shooting him in the face.
That's true.
No, I don't need to take testosterone to help get my body.
There are different incentives.
Wait, did we? Okay, this the recording's a little fucked. I think this is where it starts. Hopefully, Lutch. I know he's gonna be streaming, so I don't know if he's gonna be like pausing and then like, well, it's live, so not pausing and talking over. I'm not sure, but this is all we have because the original one is gone. So hopefully, we can still hear what's happening. Hopefully, Lutch is locked in because he's judging.
They left their fucking thing on.
You said Tyler didn't have it, or that Tyler did have it?
Because
Tyler sent me. I don't know if Tyler was streaming, but he sent me IJ's thing.
Okay,
so that's what I meant. Yeah, he was like, oh, this is it. And I was like, oh, based.
There are different incentives in countries like.
If Tyler's thing would be listening to like thumping metal music the whole time too. Remember how he freaking debates, which is crazy. He's just like got the headphones on, blaring music while he's debating. So,
interestingly enough, I found out what's it called? I found that she's also a trans Jew. Apparently, she's a trans Jew.
Wait, that's a she?
Yeah.
A trans woman, yes.
Are you trying to trick me?
She's a Jewish trans woman.
But you keep saying she. Like, is that like, I'm just, giving in and saying the pronoun, or is that like really a she that's pretending to be a man? I'm confused.
No, this is the trans woman. This is someone who was born a male, wants to be considered a woman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A Jewish trans woman. She's also Jewish and Ukrainian.
We got two trans Jews arguing. I should have named it that. Two trans Jews. Oh my gosh.
You would have had
Missed
all
opportunity.
the buzzwords.
Yeah, holy shit.
Yeah.
That would have been. That would've
Well,
been
you can
such a
always
better
change it. You can
title.
always change it after you upload it to YouTube, right? Or I
That's
mean,
true.
after the stream's over.
Yeah.
I swear you do it for D&D, don't you? Like you
I
change
can. Yeah, I can change it live, but I'm also deciding if I want to put 2 trans Jews.
What's wrong with that? It's just descriptive.
Yeah, I guess that's. Is that going to be taken? Testy, you're my voice of reason. Where are you, Testy? Do you think it's okay to put 2 trans Jews? If it is descriptive, both of these people are trans Jews. Do you think that's fine to change the title to 2 trans Jews fight over economics? Is that a valid title, Testy, in your opinion?
Are they trans with Are they trans Jews? Or are they trans people who are Jews?
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Wait, Testy, your yes is saying it's fine, right? That's what I asked Testy.
Yeah.
Because we know Kirk's a trans Jew.
Okay. Because you guys will talk me into anything and tell me anything's fine, okay? So I need to have a voice of reason.
Yeah, just put a slur halfway through it. What could go wrong?
Okay, that is such a better title. So just give me a sec while I change the 2 trans Jews fight over the economy.
I'm telling you that we're gonna have so many Jews in the comment section. 2 things Jews love: the economy and other Jews.
Okay, there we go. Oh, I was supposed to say economics. I think I wrote the economy. Yeah. Okay, perfect.
Good clickbait title. I mean, that's not clickbait. That's accurate. You can't get more accurate than that.
And yes, thank you, Voltaire. Everyone hit that like button. I always forget to tell people it does help the discoverability. Okay, so hit it.
I think she's kind of attractive.
Oh my fucking gosh!
I can't deal with the inevitable transphobia tonight, though. I mean, it's me, Big Soda, and Kirk so far. Okay, so I mean, maybe in the comments, in the chat, you're gonna see some stuff, Testy, but I mean, will there be jokes possibly made? I mean, possibly, but would I call them transphobic? I haven't said anything untoward about this Lucy person so far. Okay.
Yeah, hold up, Testy. You're the first person to dish out some horrible hate toward other groups. Just accept some hate coming your way.
That's true. That's true. That's valid.
Don't be a hypocrite.
From in the United States, for example,
is this loud enough?
Things like the prison system, things like the healthcare system have a profit motive attached to it. And my argument, I guess, would be that certain services should prioritize people's good, because we're not making the argument on the entirety of the profit motive. We're making the argument that certain services and goods would benefit from the lack of it.
There only needs to be one.
See, Let's understands too. See, Kirk, you should
prioritize the good of people that profit from it. Interesting word choice. Would be better without the profit motive. That would be the prison system, that would be the healthcare system, that would be the public transport, education. Those are the things that would benefit from the lack of profit motive, the lack of incentivizing efficiency.
Especially, I want to say, especially the services give so many easy outs. Like, because if it's just products, I think that's maybe even an easier thing. Like, it's even hard for me to think of a certain product, because I know maybe people go to like pharmaceuticals or something, but I think there's easy counters to that with like R&D funds and all this stuff that at least a conservative could make.
Well, I'm gonna pull a Brandon. I'm gonna pull a Brandon. Kirk, you could have just kind of nitpicked at what he meant by better. Like, how's it? Like, what do you mean by improve? Like, if you take away the profit motive, like, what exactly do you mean by improve?
Real quick, Confluence, can we turn this to 1.25 or 1.5? Because there's no way we're gonna get through this quickly if we don't.
That's true, and this person talks very slow.
1.5.
We probably could get away with that.
I mean, it's 2 trans talking. Let's do like 2.
Yeah. Let's do just 3.5.
And cost over maximizing
This is still kind of slow at 1.5. That's crazy.
How big the cost becomes.
So he's saying there is a lane.
And I guess with that, I see my time.
Okay, so there is a lane. It's not inherent.
I thought Indian Jesus
Energy,
respects
you know,
people's
drill, 3
pronouns.
minutes is on the clock. Feel free to ask questions or rebut as you see fit. It's your time to control energy, so go ahead and
That's a
start.
very short opener.
So Lucy, was I mistaken?
You
What,
said
Kirk?
what?
I thought Indian Jesus just called Lucia he. I thought Indian Jesus respects preferred pronouns.
I don't think he does. I could be wrong. I don't want to say that if he doesn't, but he's pretty like conservative coded when it comes to like the trans stuff, even though he's not conservative. Or well, no, I guess he is conservative. But
Yeah.
he is conservative. But
He probably would if he knows you. Like, I mean, if
he might not even know this person is trans.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
true.
but she obviously is femme presenting.
Nah, not even close.
I don't know. I don't know. I was thinking that because the name. If it wasn't the name, I would have no idea. I would have absolutely no idea.
No, I thought that was a marijuana
Hey,
reference.
shit. Good to
Is
see
this
you.
Tyler?
No, yo, Indian Jesus, he don't give a fuck about that silly gender shit, and that's not conservative coded. That's reality coded.
There we go.
Yeah, boom, boom,
Is
boom,
this what you
boom.
wanted, Testy? Is this what you're expecting?
Well, I mean, part of the problem is if you're saying I'm an
Oh,
AI,
okay.
this is if I am an AI, how can I be conscious? Because I'm conscious, and as far as we can tell, AIs
I
don't have
think you might be a
consciousness,
P zombie, Kirk, if you're familiar with that concept.
Your
Like the
consciousness
David
is yet to be
Chalmers,
proven.
right? That's the David Chalmers idea of like you get rid of everything or everything except the phenomenal consciousness, right?
Your consciousness is yet to be proven, Kirk. We don't know if you're not AI yet because you can't seem to like take a point from a piece of paper and relate it to anything and make your own arguments out of it. I think
You also couldn't even pass the Turing test, Kirk. Let's be honest. Okay, so
You've got a personality of
I can pass the
Gemini.
Turing test. What are you talking about?
I don't think you can.
I can.
That's what someone who wouldn't pass the Turing test would say.
Tessie says
Testy's
he's
rage
out.
quitting. Testy's rage. From what? From what? What did he?
Well,
what did
it's
he- what did he even say?
because of Tyler's arguments.
Testy's gotten very sensitive these days. Okay, which I understand as a sensitive man myself, but is that the person from? Is it really? Tyler, can you verify this? Tyler's
I
not here.
don't know,
Fuck.
but that, I mean,
Oh, no.
totally. It looks like fucking Dr. Frankenstein built Jeffrey Dahmer.
Is, do you subscribe to any macroeconomic school?
That's untoward.
For example, the Keynesian, Austrian, Chicago School, etc. schools of thought?
Nope.
Okay, so then are you familiar with like econometrics, economic philosophy,
Ain't gonna help
any
ya.
sort of economics as a whole?
I am not
Ask him if he's read Don Quixote, Kirk. I hope you do that for the memes.
I know, but have you read any books?
I thought you
articles,
respected people's pronouns.
Concepts, economic data, etc.
Very basic concept.
What?
I thought you respected people's pronouns.
What did I say?
You said he.
Oh, well, look, I don't try to, but I'm also not going to apologize if I slip up. Okay, don't fucking tone police me or word police me. I'm not trying to, but I might just accidentally say it. I won't go in my way to do it, but if it happens, it happens.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so what concepts of economics are you familiar with?
I am familiar with the basic models of economy.
Looking it up
I
right
am
now.
familiar with the particulars of any economic theory.
Okay, and I understand that, but I'm just basically asking if you are familiar with the concept of like supply and demand curves and
Yes,
and
yes.
comparative advantage. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Mike, are you familiar with the concept
And
of
Kirk,
the
you've been
economic
around for a
calculation
while
problem?
under so many pseudonyms.
They can't do it on their own.
I believe so.
So it's like,
Okay, so in your own words, could you explain what it is?
Is that Kirk's alt
I'm not sure
account?
if I could explain it, because I know some of these concepts in
One of his many alts.
Polish. So if you could.
what are we doing?
Okay, so the economic calculation problem is a criticism of economic planning for the allocation of the factors of production. So it's basically an advocation for.
This is the
pricing
winning
mechanism.
argument, by the way.
The idea is that in capitalism,
Oh, I
if you
know.
have a pricing
No,
mechanism,
it really
the
is.
values of what consumers want will be signified to producers, so they can allocate resources to produce those commodities and goods and services, given the information transmitted by the pricing mechanism. And without a pricing mechanism, then you get
Like you're saying that he should have won because of this argument, or is this his best argument, or what are you saying?
This is the argument that he should have been using. He should have won with it if he actually did a good job and didn't concede the definition of the prompt. Those two factors.
Okay, I guess I'll run this by me real quick. I guess because we were talking about this before you joined about how I'm the way I'm reading this prompt and the way IJ seemed to as well is that even what Lucy said. Is that right? Certain products or services. So all you have to point to is just one product or service that you think would be improved with the removal of profit motive. So going into all the economics of like what actually works mostly and talking about the Austrian economics, I don't know if that's super helpful because the prompt isn't in general would removing the profit motive improve services. Yeah. It's just, is there certain cases where this could happen? So
that's what I'm saying about the definition of the argument. What Kirk had to go in there and do is say the definition of the prompt isn't can we get any good at all out of this, because of course if a state goes in and takes over everything, there's going to be a single pro to that large list of cons, but we have to like maybe see like is it a net benefit, and if he were to kind of
but
push
that's not the prompt though, I guess, you know what I mean?
That's,
like
that's the understanding of the prompt though.
The removal of a profit motive would improve certain products or I don't know.
Yeah.
Is it?
What does it mean by improve? When you're saying this, what do we mean by improve? The definition of improve. The definition of improve is what you're saying is, does it improve it in any way, shape, or form? Will one feature get better regardless of all the rest? And what he needed to do is go in there and say, by improve, do we mean net benefit? Do we mean the actual company itself, the actual firm itself would improve? Or would there be a single improvement over there while the whole fucking company burns down and goes out of business? That
right,
should have been the argument.
I guess if you're talking about that, but I guess, but all you'd have to do is if you're talking about like the prisons, if Kirk would have to then defend that there is a net, there is not a net improvement by removing profit motives on prisons, right? So it's like any one industry that's talked about, Kirk would have to defend that on the net for that industry. It's actually not a net positive. So I agree. It wouldn't just have to be one part of the prison system gets benefited, but it would still be, you could still point to a service or a product and just argue this has a net benefit if you remove profit motive, and then Lucy has it. Like that's kind of the problem. So I still think going into the macroeconomics of like supply curves and stuff, I don't know if that's like super helpful because we're not talking about a net to the whole. I agree with you that we're talking about a net to a specific service or good, but we're not talking about a net to the overall system. And to me, what Kirk's argument just is just arguing about the net of the whole system.
Well, that's the thing is like when you're saying improve, this is what you're losing when you go to when you remove the profit motive. You're losing the allocation of scarcity. The allocation of scarcity is what makes our market. The invisible hand of the market works behind it. If you really need, I can go into explaining that a little deeper. He kind of does with his argument a little bit, but generally that's what you lose if you take away the profit motive. Is that specific mechanic. So him having to explain how fundamental that mechanic is to capitalism, to a free market versus a planned economy is a pretty big deal. I just think you have to go in first and say, this is what we mean by improve. We don't mean any improvement ever. Like, okay, the fucking government takes over, the workers get fucking better pay. That's an improvement. But is the business itself running better? Is it an overall improvement?
Okay, but I think we're packing past each other because I agree with you there. But if you still could point to one industry, let's say, that was net improving, then even if 99% of the industries would fail, then the prompt is still true that the removal of a profit motive would improve certain products or services, even if it's just one service. Right. So even if the government took over, even if 99% of industries suffered, as long as one industry had a net positive. So it can't just be one aspect of one industry. I agree with you there, but it could just be one industry in general, I guess is what I would say.
All right.
Do we know who Vigilante is? I'm not sure.
He's a bitch. Classic L taker.
But he's a trusted person, Tyler?
Like Vigilante TV? Yeah, absolutely have him up.
I don't know if it's Vigilante TV. What does the avatar be? Does he cam up? Do you cam up? Vigilante? Or type something in the chat so I can check your channel.
Yeah, if it's the same dude from Horse, yeah, absolutely have him up.
I don't know if it's the same dude from a Horse. Does he have a name he goes by?
He also has a pathological L taker. Yeah, he does have a name. It's Tyler's bitch. It's Tyler's debate punching bag. That's his name.
If it is the vigilante from Horse, which it probably is, but I don't know. Oh, it's vigilante. Wait, at least he's saying it's vigilante TV. So
That's him. That's him.
Oh,
Yep, that's me.
Hey, vigilante.
Hello. How's everybody doing?
We're doing good. How you doing?
I don't know if we've
All right.
talked before. I think I have seen you on Horse though.
Yeah, I don't think we have talked before.
Okay, but yeah, Tyler seems to know you. Were you watching yesterday? Do you have any thoughts? I guess about. We're
Oh yeah,
getting started on this, but
I
anything
so
you
far
want to say before we continue?
I pretty much agree with what you're saying so far. Tyler, the problem is like taking the absolutist position on this point while Lucy is arguing specific services is technically a straw man. So it's still a losing argument.
Tyler, your response? Tyler might not be here for that. I'm not sure. Or he's muted.
Don't worry.
I thought I heard something. No, he's gone.
If he stays
Tyler might
muted
come
long
back.
enough, Mossad will come out and they'll speak for him.
His Mossad handler must have got to him. He's giving him the
It's
correct
funny
points.
because I actually predicted in chat where this was going to go once Energy started or Kirk started talking about all of his philosophy background, and I predicted at the beginning that actually you can literally see it on screen. You can literally see the chat on screen right now on Radish from Radish's point of view. This is going to be you're too dumb to understand because you aren't read enough from Panda, which is one of Energy's aliases.
Right. Yeah. That's
Shut
you
the
on
fuck-
screen. Yeah, that's
Shut
you.
the fuck up with the panda shit. Shut the fuck up with that.
Bro, that was your name.
That was your name. What?
It was never my name. It was my nickname, and nicknames change.
That's a
You don't get to jurisdict your nicknames, Panda.
You've had a lot of names.
But yeah,
Kirk.
I've gone under like 90 nicknames, so like you can't keep track of all of them.
it sounds like a lot.
Hey,
All I know is Andy, Panda, and Energy. Okay.
to be fair, I originally knew you as Panda because I argued with you on Sanso's stream like that one time, and I argued with you on Sanso's chat a lot, and specifically started watching Sanso on Kick just so I could start arguing. I could continue arguing with you in chat because it was fun.
It does sound like Kurt.
That does sound like Kirk.
It sounds
Did he
like
get banned from that channel too?
I heard
Yeah,
Sansa
that's
quit
right,
the
Kirk.
internet. Is that true?
I don't think he streams anymore, unfortunately, but he did actually get allowed back on Twitch a while ago and started streaming on Twitch again for a while. And then I think he's like, I talked to him about it a while ago. He was talking about stopping streaming because of some personal stuff. Like he got a better job and he just didn't have time for it anymore.
Wait, Vigilante, question. Are you the guy that debated Testicular Johnson?
I debated Testy. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't remember what the topic was.
He knows
I think
everybody.
that was the one we watched. What the fuck was it on? Is that the school system one? Was it school systems? We barely got through it, I think.
No,
can't remember that.
I really did think it was one that was a position that I actually hold. Hold on.
It was a really boring, whatever the problem was, it was incredibly boring. I thought it was something to do with the school system, but I'm not sure.
Hold on, I'll look at my messages in Radish.
Because I think Tessie's only done one, so I think that's why I'm recognizing your voice so much. He's done two. I thought his second one got canceled.
Maybe.
Like the child abuse, that religion is like child abuse or whatever. Tessie had the.
He's running hard from number 3.
Yeah, he said he's like there's just no way I could defend and attack religion like that. I would never do that, he said. That'd be untoward. And nor would I be capable. He really said a lot. But yeah, so that's why he had to step away from that one. But yeah, it's coming to me. It was something about like the economy or patents or something. Big Soda, help me out.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was.
It was. It wasn't that. No, it wasn't that. I remember what it was now. It was if we should ban politicians.
From betting and on like Polymarket and stuff. That's right.
Yeah, that's what it was. Like people who
it was said like federal employees or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
From and prediction markets. What a weird
I like-
topic. What a weird fucking topic.
it was to be fair, like in general on that one, that was like I was filling in for somebody else because like I did not give a shit about that topic. So
It's
it was
so
just
funny
like
because that's what he was too. He's like, I didn't before I even watched it. He's like, yeah, I didn't really have a strong position one way or the other. That seems
that's
like
why we
neither
just
of you.
kind of
That was me last
kind of
night.
agreed the entire time.
Yeah, it was a very chill discussion from the. I think we maybe got halfway through it. There's a lot of crosstalk when we went.
We're never going to get through this, are we?
We are going to get through it. It's not very long, right? So I mean,
No.
if I can't get through a horseradish debate, I have a serious fucking problem. Which I mean, we didn't last time,
Yeah.
but
Kirk's
we will
back
this
to being
time.
a fucking masochist, begging for his embarrassment to happen 2 nights in a row. Please
Except this
play
is
my
like a-
embarrassing
this is-
display where I got the lowest score ever in horseradish history.
Kirk was kind enough that he said he didn't want to join tonight and asked me if I could do it tomorrow. And I said, I already have it set up. He's like, fine, I'll join. So we got to give Kirk's props for being here. And yeah, what do you mean by
Wow.
score? Because Tyler, when you told me this, you said 10-0. Did they actually did the judges actually give ranks? Like, does IJ give ranks?
It's
Like,
split
or
up by,
points?
by points. Yeah, split up by points. One point judge gave him 0 points. Another judge gave him 3 points, and the chat voted unanimously against him.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Okay.
It's the only time Chad has unanimously voted against anybody.
I'm not sure if that's true. I'm pretty sure.
No, it is. I
there
double
probably
checked
has
with Radish.
I don't think
I
I've seen
double
it
checked with
either.
Radish.
Oh, no. Okay. But I mean, I can see how this is going. Like, I get it, Kirk. I get that you're saying, I think you should have been careful reading the prompt because it seems like that is.
But I'm saying I got prompt
understand that
cuts.
It's really an unwinnable. Like you didn't. It's not entirely
It
that
is-
you
it
did
is
bad,
unwinnable,
It
yeah.
is literally an unwinnable prompt.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine what a good, besides what Tyler did, but I think that's kind of changing what the prompt is saying. And that's
Well,
almost the only way is to
intentionally
try to
still amazing is
change.
what it is.
Yeah, because I think if you just
I wouldn't
take
say
it
it's a
as a
straw
literal,
man.
it's not
It's
a
an
straw man, but
interpretation.
it's a very, it's an
yeah.
interpretation that's not exactly, I think, a normal or even a
Yeah.
specialized reading of the text.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
my
but,
argument
like-
was last night too, and I lost on it. So it's not like a strong argument, but it's an argument.
Yeah. Because otherwise, yeah, to take this just literal, yeah, I can't conceive of a good because all you have to do is point to one single product or service, and that's a Herculean task. So no disrespect to you, Kirk, but I also heard there was some credentialism kind of going on, and I think we already saw a little bit of this play out, but we'll see if there's more.
Mismanagement of the allocation of resources.
All right.
Okay, so if you don't have a pricing mechanism, how do you not get the misallocation of resources?
Having a pricing mechanism does not entail a profit motive, though.
Well, the premise of a pricing mechanism is that you are incentivized to allocate resources in a certain way so that way you can increase your profit because you can sell your goods
No,
or services to consumers.
That's not true for many services. That is not true for public transport, for example.
Okay.
You ask people to pay a price for a ticket, but the government subsidizes most of the cost of that ticket, which means that people buying a ticket for a bus or a tram pay only a fraction of the total cost of the transportation, which means that the pricing mechanism does not actually function as a profit motive structure in this case.
All right.
He's just out
So-
economically you right now. There's a better argument. There's a counter argument to that, but
Well, that's what I was thinking. Like, I don't know if we're thinking the same thing, but like you're looking at a service that's already like publicly owned and it's already heavily subsidized, but you could say, well, if it was a free market system, maybe it would be performing better. You can make some argument there. You could say maybe the government having its hands in public transportation is actually a bad thing, and the profit motive would exist, and it would make the services better. I mean, in a lot of places, the public transport sucks. Maybe people would be willing to spend more if it didn't suck so much. Like there's arguments I think you could make that like the government doing this could be a bad thing. The subsidization could actually be harming it.
This like bringing up public transportation, like as a democratic socialist, this is not something that I would actually do. I would focus this conversation on two specific topics, and that's health insurance and prisons. Because
the prison thing seems pretty incontrovertible.
Yeah, and there's really no benefit to health insurance being for profit. It's actually a net negative.
No, I don't know.
What's
I don't
your-
know if
what's-
prisons is a no-brainer. Recidivism rate is something you could like incentivize through law. The better the recidivism rate, the better, the more government funding you get from contracts, and that would make the free
Yeah,
market
but that's
private
not
prisons.
how. That's not how it operates in reality.
Sure,
It's
but
more
he's going an
judges
argument
get-
making
end up
shit up
getting
out of his
kickbacks,
ass.
and it incentivizes, like the way that it works in reality is it incentivizes the judges sending people to prison and actually
That's an
increases
anecdote.
No, I never did it.
That happened one time.
I am sure I can find more examples of that happening.
I think Tyler's argument is good though. Like obviously it's not how the privatized prison systems work in the U.S. and stuff, or probably any country. I don't know how many countries have private prisons that are developed, but if hypothetically, if you did tie the funding, the public funding, to the recidivism rate, maybe there would be, because then if that was the case, I know it's not, but if it was, you would have prisons maybe trying to educate more, maybe trying to do more therapy, maybe trying to actually like help people, right? There would be an incentive tied to that, and maybe that would be the most effective way to do things, because then it would be capitalistically competing to actually reform people. Like, so I know it's a hypothetical, but in that hypothetical, isn't that conceivably the case?
I mean, theoretically speaking, like you could make ethical for-profit prisons. It's just not something that we see in reality.
Right. Yeah, I'd agree with that. But I guess, yeah, I think that's probably the best argument though, is I think the one Tyler made, because like that at least there's a what Tyler?
Nothing. I'm trolling. I'm sorry. Keep going.
Because it is at least hypothetically possible that you could imagine this working, and then those profit motives would go in the right direction and incentivize the right things if it was tied to actual recidivism rates or some type of metric about how well somebody is doing after the fact. Like maybe their success after prison, do they enter the job market, right? You could look at all these things, because then you would be incentivized to get them in work training programs or some type of schooling or all sorts of stuff. So I agree that this is the case now. I would agree, but it's maybe conceivable, and maybe there's some problem I'm not thinking of that would arise even under the system Tyler suggested, but
it wouldn't
it's at least the best steel man.
It wouldn't really get rid of the motive for judges to continue to send people to prison.
Yeah, but how much is like that? So Tyler is saying that happened one time. I don't know anything about this. Do you actually think that's a common thing that's happening?
Well, the actual motive is because they broke the law. I'd like the judges to maintain the motive to send people to prison.
Right, because unless, I guess, what is this one case? Is it, because this would that be some type of like bribery or like something illegal, clearly, right? Like you're obviously not, I'm assuming there's no system for judges to get kickbacks for sending people to, right. So it's like, so how big of an issue is this, right? Like, yeah, there's always going to be examples of corruption. Is this wide scale corruption? Are we positing that? Because otherwise, yeah, I don't think that effect is probably happening where more people are getting sentenced because they're. Well, why didn't you say that? Could have saved me a couple minutes of trying to figure this out. I'm just kidding.
Well, the biggest problem, right, is the way that the contracts work. So the way that the contracts work is the state basically has to keep a specific number of people in the beds of the prison, which is what, regardless of whether there's any bribes or anything happening, because the state has that incentive, it incentivizes sending more people to prison, whether they should be there or not.
Right, but then I guess what's the point where this is happening? Are you saying that like the DA is going to be choosing to press charges more often? Like at what point along the chain is this happening? Because for it to happen at the judge level, you'd have to have corrupt judges being bribed. To happen at the DA's level, I guess you're saying there's some pressure that if they don't send it, like I understand broadly, maybe
it's a contractual pressure between the state and the prison.
I know, but that's not really answering what I'm asking. I'm saying, at what point along the chain is this incentive actualized, right? Like I understand in theory that incentive's there, but does it happen when the cop's arresting the guy? Does it happen when the charges are laid? Does it happen when the prosecutor takes the case? Does it happen during a trial? Does it happen during the sentencing? Like at what point does this happen?
I think I got an answer to that.
It would be during the sentencing, at least in my opinion.
But then wouldn't that be the judge? I guess, okay, the one thing I would say, and in Big Soda, you could say your thing. Yeah. Maybe with the sentencing, it could be because obviously there's sentence guidelines and there's minimums, mandatory minimums, and those are set by, the legislative stuff, right? And so I guess so that's an area where the government is creating laws, right? To say that if you've done second degree murder, the mandatory minimum is going to be this besides these, mitigating factors. And they have, like, me and Tyler looked into this with the Epstein thing, where they'll have all these like point systems in different places, where if you have like priors, they might add 2 points, and it's this like complex, like, framework to like decide someone's sentence. And that stuff isn't decided. It's not like the judge can just hand out any old sentence generally, right? There's usually like things they're supposed to follow.
Yeah.
And so I guess that is set by the state themselves. If the state is also incentivized to keep people in prison, then they might be more likely to make the law say the mandatory minimum is 12 years instead of 8 years. It'll keep someone in prison for 4 years longer. So that's the only step along the chain I could think of. I don't know if that's what you're going with, Big Soda, or you have a different.
Jeff did nothing wrong.
Something similar. I'd probably say it'd be like a financial relationship between the private prisons and then the DAs and the legislators through like campaign donations. And that would be like a hidden pressure to try and get people, either on charges or get a higher conviction rate.
Wait, because the DA is appointed, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess
the DA is elected.
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 Yeah,
Okay.
it's elected.
And the
So
private prisons
do they
do have a
campaign?
lot of
How does this work?
Well,
Yeah, DAs
I guess either the entity that's running it would provide like a donation or donate to super PACs who would then donate to the campaign.
So it does work with the same stuff about like you can get a super PAC donating to a DA's campaign. Like, this is something I'm completely unfamiliar with.
I mean, I don't see why you couldn't. It definitely works with legislators.
The absence of proof is not proof of your theory. Just because they take money does not mean APAC has corrupted the politicians or the NRA.
No. I'm just
APAC's
saying,
got their heads in there somewhere.
I think it's feasible. I think this, if you're going to argue from this, this position, I would say this would make the most sense to me.
Yeah, that's true. So maybe there is a few different vectors that this pressure could be implemented.
Yeah, it's definitely a multifaceted issue.
I think the judge would be the hardest thing, though. I think to actually, because
that would have to be like direct bribery or something, right? Like that has to be something direct.
I am kind of
the judges are appointed by the state.
Well, that would be appointed. It wouldn't be a voting.
So I guess,
well, true.
So I guess then you might be incentivized to appoint a judge that is more like strict and harsh on crime and stuff. It sounds a little still too maybe not conspiratorial, but maybe like a little too black-pilled for me to think that when someone's appointing a judge that they're like, wait, I know that we got to keep people in prison. Like when I look at like harsh on crime politicians, maybe this is me just not wanting to think about it this way, but I don't want to think that they're harsh on crime because they're thinking of the private prisons and the for-profit prisons, and that's why they have a harsh on crime stance. I want to think that they're just in a way that I would be as a conservative, that I would want to be harsh on crime because I don't want things to be dangerous.
That's why a lot of the harsh on crime candidates tend to also be against like legalizing marijuana and stuff, is because they want to keep that a crime so they can funnel people into the prisons, because it's like the number one thing that people go to jail for is drug crimes related to marijuana.
Yeah, but the possession charge, hold on. The possession charges that we see people incarcerated for are generally greater charges downgraded to possession, and it's very, very rare that people go to jail for a possession charge. Almost never happens.
Yeah, in my state, unless you go above and beyond over like the 1 ounce of, or I guess whatever weight of particular drug, you're more likely to get possession and get a ticket.
Yeah, any argument that they can say you had enough weight on you to be legally, like, there's a certain threshold you have to pass to say that he could hypothetically be distributing this.
Yeah,
and then to my buddy, they got him with 5 pounds like 2 years ago. They seized his fucking BMW that he owned for years and years. And like, so they will fuck you when you have a lot. But I
think if you have 5 pounds, you probably are intending to distribute.
That's a whole lot.
that's a lot of pounds of weed.
So Voltaire, that's just a good time.
Yeah, well, that's an average Tuesday, the Voltaire.
Anyway, can we get back to the
I
thing?
do feel bad about
that would be multiple months worth of.
He's just the first person that I thought of.
I forgot I even did that until you commented. You're like, I'm just at the part where you're guilt tripping Voltaire for smoking weed. I was like, oh, that did happen.
I thought it was based. I was liking it.
Yep, we're out of time. I'm going to go ahead and put 3 minutes on the clock now for you, Energy. Go ahead and start it up.
That was rough.
Just so you know, Lucy, like I said, after this, you're going to get the same chance to ask Energy questions, et cetera. So uninterrupted, go ahead and start yourself off.
To prison.
Okay. So I subscribe to the school of economic thought known as the Austrian School of Economics, which is a school of economic thought which emphasizes that the government should not intervene in the production of goods or services, and there should be a profit motive incentivizing the allocation of resources, because of the idea that if there's not a profit motive, then there's not information being signaled from consumers of goods and services to producers of goods and services. For example, in the Soviet Union, when they nationalized things like farm production, they couldn't allocate resources to people for where they should give basically the food that was being grown in the farms, because of the fact that it was owned by the government and there was no profit incentive for the governments to know where to allocate resources. And so, in my view, the pricing and profit motive gives information from the consumer to the producer so they can know where they can invest and allocate resources. For example, if I run a business and I notice my business is failing, and I'll look at the data that the marketing and data analysts will look at and see, well, consumers prefer these goods and services to other goods and services, so I'll allocate those resources to producing more of the goods and services that the consumers want, according to the marketing data analysis. In my view, this is akin to the idea that scientific knowledge is fallible and constantly being revised, because of the fact that basically it's like you have a conjecture of.
Let's see, and just to briefly pause, yeah, this would be a fine argument if the prompt was different, and and it was just about that it would overall improve overall improve products and services. Then I think this line of inquiry is fine. But
this is a great argument against socialism too.
Sounds like Kirk's teaching about economics.
Yeah.
What you should allocate resources to make, and that's akin to a scientific theory. And the way to test a scientific theory is not to dogmatically accept it. You test it against reality by seeing, hey, do consumers actually want to buy this good or service? And if they do, then you continue producing that good or service. And if you don't, test it against reality, then you don't know whether you should continue to produce that good or service, because you have no way to know all the individual examples. The economist Milton Friedman used the example of a pencil. A pencil
Vigilante, sorry, just to ask, did you say you're a social democrat or a democratic socialist?
I am a democratic socialist.
Are you a tomato or a tomato?
Hey, those are two very different things. Okay,
they are
one of them is sane, the other one is the position Vigilante holds. Okay.
Well, no, I'm on the market socialism side of things, so I don't want to centralize the entire economy. Though
neither did the fascists.
Wait, so in what sense are you a socialist, I guess?
So there are certain aspects of the economy that I want to centralize. I want to centralize healthcare, education, obviously prisons. We were talking about that a second ago. I think we should establish UBI. As far as like on the economic side, I do generally think that we should still have a free market. However, I don't necessarily believe that we should have private companies in the way that they exist today. I think it should pretty much only be co-ops for the most part.
Oh, okay, there you go. Everything else you're saying, I'm like, you just sound like Andrew Yang right now. But yeah, the last part is the real
How do you respond
shit.
to the Austrian economic critique that the government can't have enough knowledge to manage the economy effectively because they don't have price signals to know where to allocate resources?
I don't think the government that's relevant in the specific areas that I'm talking about that need to be centralized. Things like healthcare, things like education, the government, like even when it comes down to like those things, there's not really anything to analyze in the free market for the most part in order for the government to necessarily need to allocate those resources outside of like what colleges are the most popular.
Well, so for example, let's say let's say you have the context of insurance and disease. Well, if you have private health insurance, they can know where to allocate resources to give out when people, because they know how to take care of that because of the pricing mechanism. So they know where to allocate medical resources if there's disease concentrated in an area, but the government can't know where to allocate the resources because there's not a pricing mechanism.
Yeah, Kirk.
The way that health insurance works is the only thing that health insurance does is pay for the procedure. What you're talking about is something that's done by the pharmaceutical companies and the hospitals.
You're accessing the wrong argument here, Kirk. The argument here is that government insurance tends to be one size fit all, less tailored. Private insurance allows for these more tailored plans for people that have specific issues. So if you have a rare issue, you go to a government plan that might not be equipped. It might be too lightweight for that specific issue, where private insurance can find a way to make that specific issue profitable. Generally, it kind of is.
No,
that's
even the way that we have Medicaid here in the U.S. Now, this is going to be anecdotal, right? Because I do actually have a fairly extreme medical issue. I have spina bifida. Most people, when I say that, probably aren't going to know what that means. But
A bad
basically,
condition.
it's I have a ball of fat tethering my spine to my spinal cord. Like 90%, 99% of people that have it are in wheelchairs or have to use some sort of assistance to walk. I'm in like the 1% of people who can walk completely unassisted. The caveat with that, with me being one of the people that can walk unassisted, is I'm in constant fucking pain. So like when I'm on private insurance, right? So like when I had a really good employer health insurance plan, and I was on United, I maxed out my copay and my out-of-pocket fees in 2 months. And I actually, whenever I was on Medicaid, I actually got better results, not just because I didn't have to pay for it, but because it's actually a lot easier for you to get referrals and shit to the proper resources that you need versus under private health insurance. They just refer you out and refer you out and refer you out because they're just trying to push the ball down the line.
Generally, yes, but the problem is what we see with European nations is they tend to underpay for the drugs that they use. This is something Trump was talking about with his favored nations drug pricing. We end up footing the bill for massive amounts of R&D. Kirk brought this up at the beginning of his argument, I think his introduction there, and that result is the American taxpayer, the American consumer ends up paying those bills while other people say, we're not going to pay that. We're going to pay what you charged for the drug 10 years ago, regardless of inflation, regardless of cost of production. And it causes the U.S. to be the only company actually doing R&D. Everyone else is more worried about maintaining the status quo for their voters. So
well, the biggest problem with a lot of the systems, like let's take Canada's system, for example, right? The biggest problem with Canada's system and why Canada tends to have the longer wait time issues that it has is because of the fact that Canada puts a cap on how much doctors can make. So once doctors hit that cap, that's when they tend to come down here to the US. What you don't do is put a cap on how much people can make. That's the reason why a lot of these systems end up having the issues that they do.
Yeah, we do lose a lot of doctors to America. And same with pilots. All the good pilots and doctors, they just try to go south.
Sounds like a for-profit system working to me.
Yeah, I mean it's not.
Because I mean the systems that don't have that cap work perfectly fine.
But I would also say, I don't know, with what Tyler was saying with his specialized thing, to me that seems like a good point because there is so I'm currently living in Canada and it's one size fits all. But let's say I wanted something more specialized for, in the event that I get some uncommon disease and I want like some medicine that's not going to be covered because there's some medication or procedures that the Canadian government will just tell you can't have that, right? It's just too expensive. And it's not like you can pay out of pocket unless you live in like one of the places that has like a 2-tiered system. So you're just kind of like shit out of luck, right? Whereas like there is some advantage to if you have some private insurance that you could just go ahead. If you already have the money, you could be like, look, I'm worried about maybe getting some weird condition. If I do get that condition, I want to be able to get, the best treatments available. And I don't have to worry about, someone saying, oh, you don't qualify for this. It's too much. Right. So like that's at least a choice you have in America. It's not a choice you have in Canada.
Yeah. So like here's where like the major failure comes from the for-profit healthcare system, right? So like what is actually the profit incentive to cure cancer?
Well, like from the health insurance or from like an R&D angle?
You could patent the cure, and then everybody that gets cancer ever would come to you, and you.
Like if we're talking. It feels like we're switching from the health insurance to the pharmaceutical companies, because that would. I mean, I understand what you're saying that like, hey, if you have cancer, then you can give them pills forever and stuff. But also, what Tyler says is definitely true. If you did cure cancer, your company would be like evaluated like would be the biggest healthcare
I mean, it's the same reason why
company in the world.
It's the same reason why there's no incentive for us to replace gasoline with cars, right? because the system that we have is so profitable that they don't necessarily understand that other things can be profitable. We
Yeah, but
have other designs for
Are you
cars.
saying? I get what you're saying with the car thing, but with the pharmaceuticals, if we're using that industry, you don't think like Pfizer would be if they could cure cancer and they would know I could patent this and it will be the biggest drug seller in the history of the world. Like you think they wouldn't be doing that?
What's more profitable? A one-time treatment? Unless you charge fucking millions of dollars for it. No, it's not, because with the cancer treatments specifically,
you're putting your competition out of business too. You own that market. There's nothing else. Everyone else has treatments for
but
cancer.
it's still like maybe a couple time treatment, whereas cancer treatment is months to years of treatment, and then there's still the chance of it coming back and they're a reoccurring customer.
Well, also,
but first of all, you could charge what you want for this if you're the one who invented it, right? And second of all, you'd be selling it to everyone. You would corner the market. The entire world would be buying your drug.
Let's say it's not Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, or the other two big companies. Let's say it's a small startup company that wants to put this out there so they can get their name on the map. That's how you do it. That's generally where a lot of these innovations come from, is some poor person that can't afford their innovation, makes a plan, goes to a bank, takes out a loan with a giant market plan of how they're going to turn that money around and make a ton. They get approved of that loan. They'll get a bunch of investors, blah, blah, blah. Go into it. It has a 5% chance of succeeding with new pharmaceuticals, by the way. So 95% of the time, these rich billionaires just wasted their money. That person goes in, they solve it.
My whole point on this, though, is the fact of with the profit motive that we have. It's the whole reason why we see, instead of actually focusing on curing issues, we focus on treating them long term, because it's more profitable for the pharmaceutical companies. We treat the symptoms, not the actual disease.
I don't know. Like with certain things, I can see that. Like with certain things where the alternative is not something that can easily be sold. So like if you're like a pain patient, right, assuming you like with your spina bifida stuff, if you are on like pain meds, right, maybe you're familiar with like kratom, which like IJ is a kratom enjoyer, right? And that apparently, I don't know, it obviously doesn't help as well with pain, but doctors are never gonna, it's a plant, there's not really any benefit to them like going into that. So you could maybe argue, hey, this might be the better option, but like no one's gonna be actually like using this thing. Or with an old medication, like there's people that say, I'm not saying I believe this, that ivermectin can like cure cancer and stuff. And it's like, if that was the case, I could understand why pharmaceutical companies wouldn't want to put that out, because the drug's already been on forever. They can't really make much money off of it, right?
Ivermectin cured my bum knee.
Hey, Teriak.
Let's talk about the pain situation, right? So like with pain medication, there are already longer term treatments for pain to help get rid of that. There's like the injections you can get in the back of your neck. So the way that it works when you if that doesn't work is you still have to so the injections are supposed to last 3 months, 3 to 6 months before it actually before you get another one, right? And like if you're in extreme cases like mine, for example, where I got the injections in the back of my neck, and then the pain came back literally like a month later. What I was told is that I still had to get the injections 3 more times before they would do the longer term solution, which is burning the nerves. And burning the nerves lasts 6 months to a year. So like even with like this, if the solution that they want you to do doesn't work, you still have to do that solution they want you to do multiple more times before they actually let you do this.
I've experienced something similar. When I have a chronic medical condition, I've experienced something similar where, and that's only because they're trying to make sure someone's not abusing the system to get to this. A lot of times it has to do with trying to get to opiates. There's certain steps you have to pass before they'll let you have opiates, because people are trying to abuse them, or people, they want you to do the less expensive alternative first, generally.
Yeah, but there are alternatives to that. You can go to pain management doctors that literally refuse to prescribe you opiates, and they still do this. Because I know that because I was literally going to one that does not prescribe opiates.
Yeah. Well, I think your point makes more sense if you think of these companies as like a conglomerate, but like if you're saying long term, it probably does make them a ton of money to treat the problem rather than fix it. but they're not a conglomerate. Like if you have one of those companies say, we're going to put all the rest of their treatment options out of business by putting this cure out there, they go from having 20% of the market to 100, or if it's a brand new company, 0% of market share to 100 because nobody else has their product anymore. So sure, the money might not be there for those instantiated companies, but if a new company comes in tomorrow, that's their $1 billion idea.
Yeah, let's look let's look at a more rare disease, something like ALS, right? ALS is fairly rare, if not like super rare. There's no profit because of how rare it is. There's no profit motive in order to cure ALS versus to just continue to treat the symptoms. There's because of how rare it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely true. I don't even know what the treatments really are for it. I don't know if there's anything. Isn't it just like a degenerative thing that there's not really much you can even do?
The treatments are basically just symptom management, which is what I was pointing out. That's the whole problem with our medical system, is that we treat the symptoms and not the disease.
Right. But that's, I guess if you're bringing up a rare thing, then, I mean, what's the alternative? Like, if it's not I understand it's not a profit motive because it's a rare disease, but if the government's in charge of everything, and maybe I'm misunderstanding your point, but they would still they would be using kind of the same calculations. They'd be like, do we pour money into finding a cure for ALS when it affects this percent of the population that's very low? Or should we focus our money on, because tax dollars are limited, right? Should we focus it on stuff that like a lot more people have? So would that problem go away?
No, my general point is the fact that
the key here is that, like, you have to provide the argument why we shouldn't have a hybrid system. Because you want the system of capital or private, because that's going to drive competition, which will drive prices down.
Well, you missed the debate prompt we're arguing about.
Yeah, because in terms of like national, like you would want like a national like base level of health coverage. But when you're talking about, let's talk about very rare disease and all this stuff, sure, you could get government to try and do R&D into that, but it does not necessarily guarantee that there is a solution to it. Some things are just incurable.
Well, generally what happens is because the insurance pays the vast majority of these expensive medications, they will still find rare diseases, cures for rare diseases and whatnot. They'll just charge $20,000 a dose so that they can eventually make their money back on it. Then the insurance has to pay it, and your insurance cost goes up as a result. But we do see cures for rare diseases coming on all the time. And I just looked for ALS in particular. There's a pretty vast amount of private funding, and the majority of funding that goes into ALS research for a cure is from the private sector trying to find a cure for it. So,
well, that was remember the whole ice bucket challenge. I don't know if that really led to anything, but it's a viral sensation. Okay,
changed my mind.
Yeah, but we'll keep going with this. Otherwise, Kirk, I can just feel him telling me to start the video. He's telepathically telling me.
Knows how to make a pencil because they know
one man can't make a pencil.
Where they can utilize the labor of some people who are good at manufacturing lead or refining lead, and then cutting down wood and then turning it into a pencil. And they know that they should produce pencils because of the fact that consumers want pencils. But if you have an economy where you don't know whether consumers want pencils or not, you might either make too many pencils, which is excessive and a waste of resources, or you might not make enough pencils because you don't have the information from the pricing mechanism. You don't have the profit incentive to know whether.
So the question is Lucy going to be able to find that lane?
Profit production.
Lucy has established
and the profit motive
there is a lane
for
Lucy has to say what that is,
and it allows for a division of labor where people who are skilled at making wood or cutting down wood will cut down wood. Refining lead will do that, etc. And so basically, in my view, the pricing mechanism, the profit incentive, gives people this reason to allocate resources more effectively.
I'm going to switch back over.
All right.
I like that lunches don't get on too.
3 minutes is on the clock. This is your opportunity to question energy about what you just said, what they just said, or to rebut as you see fit. I'll start the clock when you start to talk. You control the time.
Using that against Gordon.
I guess I have a few responses to what was just being said. One is that
Kirk, just a quick question. Why are you going by energy here instead of Cool Kid Kirk?
Because this is my Twitch name.
Oh, is that what you said last night? Because what you told me was there's a bunch of weirdos on Twitch and you don't want them to know your real name. And then you said it's fine to say it on YouTube because those weirdos don't go to YouTube.
Interesting.
I also, there was weirdos on Twitch. I'm not gonna put my real name as my Twitch username.
Yeah, I understand that. That's why it's just your YouTube name. They can't cross the barrier. It's an invisible barrier. Yeah, I got it.
We have the Iron Dome on YouTube. Okay, we'll shoot those Twitch people down the second they try to hop over.
That is kind of true when we were talking about companies, because companies incentivize profit and companies incentivize providing.
Oh, it was you, Gruner, that told me this. I thought it was you. Yeah, yeah. So Gruner is the guy who thinks that ivermectin can cure. He's saying 82% of patients. I would probably want to see a study on that. Maybe. I'm not saying it's impossible. Hey, and if I had cancer, I probably would try it out. Give it the old college try. I mean, why not?
Ivermectin cured my bum knee.
There we go. I mean, the thing can cure C19. It can cure cancer. I mean, this is a freaking wonder drug. Also, anti-parasite. You know.
It also
no wonder the guy got
horses.
like that fucking Nobel Prize from it or whatever he fucking won.
Profit because they want to maximize the amount of revenue that gets in. But companies are not the only parties that offer services, and governments are bodies that offer those. And citizens of countries, cities, and neighborhoods are not customers. They are people that benefit from what the government has to offer to them. And so we have things like healthcare. When the government creates medicine for people that are not in large amounts, for example, that need a certain type of medicine, they will research the medicine even though there will be no profit in it. The government will provide transportation to rural areas where not a huge amount of people will live, that will also not produce profit. The governments will subsidize, even at a loss, certain services for people that need it. And also there's
I think these are good points from Lucy.
Supply and demand are not necessarily linked to a profit model. These are more things tied to trade overall. You do not need to maximize profit to give people what they need and charge money for it. Non-governmental organizations that start businesses are forbidden from having a profit from creating a profit, but they still are able to create a successful business.
Okay, maybe I do have to look into this. Because Cleaner is saying there's a study with 2,000 people and tumors and cancer, and the recession/stop rate was 82%. Yeah, I'll have to look at. Is there being more research done? I would think. Hopefully, I don't know. I'd want to see the study. I want to see the study. I guess I'll have to. You probably given me enough that I can look it up after stream.
There does seem to be a link.
Good to see you, by the way, Cleaner.
Yeah, what's up, Cleaner?
There seems to be a link between cancer and parasites. Some sort of link.
Is that
That's why
true?
you're seeing ivermectin like having some sort of like effect in either negating or helping treat cancer itself. Like ivermectin, like a lot of like disease in modern day does seem to be down to just simply parasites. Why ivermectin is being held as a wonder drug.
I'd have to look it up as well, but I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense because cancer in a way is parasitic.
So's Kirk.
I get, but I don't really get I know nothing about this. But right, a parasite is a separate organism. Cancer is not a separate organism. Cancer is your own cells. So I understand it's parasitic in the sense that it's like spreading beyond its normal bounds or whatever. But like a parasite's a foreign object, right? A foreign entity.
Yeah, but it's what happens when those parasites die. They'll affect the surrounding cells. Like it's like toxicity.
Don't waste your time. There's nothing linking cancer survival rates to. I just checked. No link between fucking ivermectin and cancer survival rates at all. We are the #1 nation on cancer survival rates in the world and have been for like 30 years. Ivermectin has never been part of that.
Did you find the study that they're talking about? They both seem to have at least seen the same study. I don't get this claim though, Cleaner. Like largest in terms of like sample size, because 2000 is fine, but it's definitely not the largest. There's a shit ton of pharmaceutical studies that are way, unless you mean larger in some other context, that's not the number of people. But Let's Chief sent it to me. Okay, you know what? We're gonna look it up. We're gonna look it up now. We'll do it live. Thanks, Les Chief. Okay. So real world clinical outcomes of ivermectin and midanzolol in cancer. How do you say that? Fuck it. I'm not even gonna try. Whatever.
Mebendazole.
My damsel.
My damsel. Results from a prospective observational cohort. Oh God. Okay. Low toxicity cancer patients. We're gonna speed run this. Just see what they're saying. Okay. Wait, you said 2,000, Cleaner. If this is the one, this is 197. Okay. Participants received compound capsules. Data was collected. A total of Only 120. Okay, now we're down to 122 completed follow-up. Primary outcomes included self-reported cancer. This is a weird study. Why would you use self-reported cancer? What?
Well, when I drink owl piss, my cancer went away. RFK told me to do it.
Yeah,
Well,
like that's
out.
Gruner Cleaner. You gotta real. That seems crazy, right? Does that seem crazy?
Yeah, you
Not
self-reporting
not
whenever
fact-
it comes to medical studies is
Not,
relevant.
wait, what site do you think I'm on, Red Eye Gruner? This is the study. Unless you're saying this is the wrong study. This isn't. I'm not fact. This is pub. Do you know what PubMed is? This is not.
It
I feel like
seems
you're confused, or I'm not understanding, and I'm confused on what you're.
it seems like
what
a
you're
study
saying.
that was done over a 30-minute phone call.
Well, yeah, it did say it was telehealth, so it literally
I
was
fucking
just.
knew it.
They're not
I
even.
knew
Yeah, they're
it.
not even seeing them.
Oh, that's not a fucking real study. What?
Wait, and this
Right.
is the whole thing. This is the whole study. Where's the methodology? Or is this just the abstract?
Yeah, don't worry about the methodology.
Where's
Yeah, that's just stupid. What's the results say?
Yeah, that's what we're all interested in.
Yeah, the conclusion will tell you basically what it is, but I'm pretty sure the conclusion's like it's like self-reported.
Oh, here we go.
benefits.
Yeah, well, it already said that in the thing. It said that in the little intro. I can't remember where it said that. Yeah, primary outcomes included self-reported cancer status. That's the biggest red flag about this. Okay, so this is the actual study. Okay, so at least there is more than what we thought. What were the results though? Let's see this. A majority of the cohort reported being, oh man, it's talking about being vaccinated. Okay, well, this is a thing. It's a thing
Hitting all
that's
the
happening.
buzzwords.
Yeah, this is.
It already lost me at it's a
Wait, and
self-report study, and it's just getting worse.
Yeah, and then
You'd be shocked how many self-report studies are used for major points around the fucking political sphere.
No, I mean like
but for cancer,
self-report study
that's
is like the self-report studies are fine, like depending on what the topic is. But we're talking about medical, like actual science stuff.
Yeah,
self-reporting doesn't fucking
if
matter.
it's your like if you're studying depression, then sure, self-report all you want. That's all we really care about, right? But if we're
The most
talking about
reliable
cancer,
crime
where you can
data.
give actual real world tests, but it's not even saying that it's seeing 62. They're just reporting it's stable or not currently spreading. I see nothing about even like remission or. Yeah, I'm not even seeing anything about that. This seems to be completely different than what I was told, Red Eye Gruner. I'm just saying that, okay?
Dude.
Maybe I'll look into it more, but this. Yeah, I don't even know about if there's anything that's even saying some type of cure.
It's right on the paper, bro. The vaccine melted your brain.
Yeah, because it just seems to be.
To be fair, maybe the vaccine's the reason why it's a poor study. It's the vaccine's fault.
I kind of think so. And we leave that to Joe Biden, despite when it came out.
Yeah, I don't even think it's giving, unless I just can't find it, I don't think it's giving a number of like the cancer actually going away. It just seems to be like hasn't gotten worse, again, self-reported and is stable, whatever that seems to mean. But I'm not even seeing a number of like, I mean, this was peddled to me as a cure, and I'm not really sure if we're seeing anything.
Like,
I'll have to look into this more, but I'm not seeing it so far.
If the results weren't self-reported, that alone would be a good thing. However, the results are fucking self-reported anyway, so it's not really verifiable.
Yeah, and even the claimed results aren't like, don't seem incredibly. I mean, it's also a sample size of the 160 people, of which only 119 ended up following up. What happened to the other ones? Did they die from cancer? Because that would also be significant to know. Or did they just drop out of the test? This is why you can't have something done by telehealth.
Not important, you fucking do your own research, bro.
Because right, it's like if all those people died, and that's why they're not, or they're now like on fucking hospice, then that would be a massive percent on where this was not a good idea. Also, are these people only on this? Are they on other? I don't. Maybe if I read it more, maybe it does specify if they're on other. Like chemo or radiation, or if they're just like doing, I mean, if you're on an ivermectin trial, maybe you're not doing anything else, and maybe that's why it dropped from like 190 people to like 115 or whatever it was. But okay, that's a distraction. Maybe I'll look into it more later. But I still might eat some ivermectin, like so I'll get a fucking horse block or whatever the fuck if I got cancer. I mean, don't threaten me with a good time. Not about the cancer part. That's not a good time. But if I
have some in the house,
I might eat the horse medicine. Okay,
I have some ivermectin, man.
Obviously,
if you need it, I get it for my dogs.
Yeah, there we go.
Tyler can be.
So I might hit you up one time. You know,
I sniff lines of it.
Boofing ivermectin. That's what this should be your next thing, Tyler.
It's learning what people need, providing that good, and then earning money for it. But there is no profit motive involved because profit is not something that is possible in that model.
Yeah, I
am not arguing that profit motive is a negative in all situations. All I am required to do in this conversation is to say that certain goods and certain services would benefit from the lack of a
and show how that's the case.
And I would definitely make that case for medicine, for that inflicts people in very rare cases. Development of such medicine will not generate profit, and certainly distribution of such medicine will not generate profit. And yet that is something that is necessary for the people involved, and that is something that the government should do, and it would be a benefit, even though the profit motive would be taken away from the equation. And I would make the case as such for the prison system, which, as I understand it, is profit motive in the United States, and things like transportation, because sometimes there are just not enough people benefiting from those things to generate a profit, and yet people still need those things.
All right. So, again, as I said before, it is not necessarily just in time for cross-examination.
Dr. John Campbell.
Time to rebut if they prefer, which is exactly what Lucy decided to do. With that said, 15 minutes is now on the clock for the open forum. Now it's just a conversation between the two of you. Please keep it above the belt. Stay reasonable and.
I don't want to know what's below that belt.
Yeah. So my first question to you.
Okay, I just have to say that when I look up this really is the panacea. Dr. John Campbell, known for advocating for the use of ivermectin as a C19 treatment and prophylactic. So he's like, hey, I think it works in this way. Why not also cancer? Maybe it just cures everything.
I mean, that makes it easy.
Now I got to know what bro's got a PhD in nursing.
Oh, that checks out.
Rad Eye Gunner, you're sending me. He's a doctor because he has a PhD in nursing. Okay. Oh, man.
But just a quick question on this debate. Is this specifically only in the medical field, or is this like socialism in general?
Oh, no, it's technically whatever Lucy decides to argue, because it was the removal of the profit motive would improve certain products or services. The reason we were talking about the medical field is because I was talking about how I would argue this prompt. And my argument would be focused on the medical field and prisons.
Yeah, and Lucy brought those up. They seem to be going into the medical stuff, and then she also brought up private transport as like a third kind of point that she thinks would not be improved with a profit motive. Because all she has to do is find basically one, and then she wins the prompt.
But is that like your limiting principle to your socialisms? Just healthcare.
I am a market socialist, so for the most part, I don't support centralizing most products and services. I still support having a free market. I just think that we should structure private companies differently.
Yeah, but if the government has the final say over all industries, over the market, then it's not exactly a free market.
No, I don't support centralization. I support, instead of centralization, still utilizing the free market system and just requiring companies to be co-ops instead.
Well, what about the argument that hierarchy is natural, like because of evolutionary psychology, that like we evolve in a hierarchical setting because there's a division of labor and that's part of human nature? Like
you still get hierarchy in a co-op, buddy.
Yeah, but when if you say all companies now have to be a co-op, that's basically socializing every single company. It means you have no limiting principle to socialism.
No, I mean I'm not arguing that it's not socialism, but because of the fact that it's not centralized, it's still a free market system.
Like this whole thing to like avoid like one dude or like a group of dudes like having like a centralized authority over a company. Like that's why companies
No,
are so effective.
that's not why I support co-ops over the way that private companies work, and it's because co-ops, at least in my opinion, are the only way to actually properly have the profit sharing motive of what a company is supposed to be as equalized as it possibly can be. So you would still cover the operating costs and stuff, just how much people make is, based off of the company's profits is more equal than what we have now, where like we have the CEOs and the people at the top making 100 times what the people at the bottom make.
Yeah, but you do that properly, and it was supposed to be run as doing a lot of heavy lifting there. And if co-ops were an effective form of how to manage a company, there's nothing preventing you starting your whole co-op in, let's say, your hairdressers or whatever, and turning it into a co-op and trying to compete that way.
In most states, there's not a legal framework for how to register a co-op. There are still ways to do it, but it's very complicated to do.
I'm going to jump in and ask you a clarifying thing if I can. Because
go for it.
I've always wanted to know this, because so this is like going to be someone that maybe you like, maybe you don't. Hassan Piker, okay, enemy of the show. I remember hearing him and Ethan. They had that little thing called Leftovers that they were hosting together. And I remember they were getting Hassan was all about like worker co-ops and saying this was the best way. But then Ethan was like, okay, I have a company of like, or a business of like, maybe 10 employees or something, and they're all like highly contributing. But if this was a co-op, he's like, if I hired, let's say, a janitor or a cleaner, then they would have to be a part of this. Like, what percent of the profit do they get? They get the same like voting rights. And Hassan was like, yes, they would get like the same voting rights. And Ethan's like, well, why would I want the janitor to have a say in like what we're doing? Is like, that doesn't make any sense. I just need someone to like clean the toilets to keep the place tidy. And Hassan was just like, well, no, they would get equal. Like, is that what you believe, or is Hassan like misrepresenting co-ops? Like, who this how much?
So like, if you were to like directly hire a janitor, technically yes, they would get like voting power and profit sharing and stuff. However, what this would incentivize instead more so is like utilizing companies like I'm just gonna use the major one that we have here in my city. That's called Centos. I don't know how widespread it is, but it's basically a janitorial company. So instead, if you contract that specific work out to effectively a janitorial company, it would basically be based off of that company's profits versus having to loop those people into your profits instead.
Okay, but so I get the pluses, but then does that not sound crazy to you that if you just wanted to hire a janitor as a small business of like highly, let's say, specialized people, that they would get equal shares of the, like, this doesn't make any sense. You only see how that sounds insane to me, right? Like if I'm let's say I become a massive streamer and I just want to hire someone to do like some clips for me. It's like, well, now I'm like splitting the profits like 50-50 because you know what I mean? Like that seems insane. Or if I had a business of like 3 people that are doing like streaming and then we just want to hire a clipper, now they get 1/4 of the voting rights, 1/4 of the profits. Like that makes no sense, right? Like, or does that make sense to you? Like to me, that just sounds like on its face insane.
I mean, unless you were making them W-2 employees, those would most likely be contractors. So
let's say I did want to make them employees. Yeah, let's say I want to do that, but I don't want them. You would agree that it wouldn't make sense for me hiring someone who's doing a normal task.
If you're at the point of like wanting it to be like a W-2 employee, you're going to be on the level of somebody like, let's use I'm going to use these people for a specific reason. Say like TYT. Like at the level that they're at, there's no reason for them not to have their co-op for their staff, because like especially as a leftist liberal organization, there's no reason for them not to be a co-op, because they're at the size where they're making a significant amount of profit, and all of these different people can heavily contribute to what they do.
Are they making profit? I thought they were running at a loss.
Yeah, but this is the reason why this is such a dog shit idea is because it's like this whole thing of like egalitarianism and democracy and all this kind of shit. Like everybody should get a say and all this kind of thing because effectively reason is more rare than ignorance.
Well, I mean,
so like democracy fundamentally as an idea is retard supremacy because essentially what you're going to end up with if you just have pure out and out democracy is the ignorant are going to be making them they have the majority of the power over the actual rational people. You know what I mean? So to say like someone like even in TYT that like they hire a new news anchor or whatever and he has just as much to say as fucking Cenk who founded the fucking company is batshit crazy.
Right. And is it a part of this that they would get equal profits? Like, are you saying that Cenk and Anna that they would get like if they hired the janitor that you're saying in this idealized co-op, they would be making equal money? Like that's insane.
It really depends on how you do the co-op, right? So like there are like one of the main ways that co-ops are done now is you don't get the full profit sharing right away. Because there's a grocery store in the South. I don't remember what it's called right now. But I think it's like Wawa or something. But the way that their profit sharing works is they gradually open it up the longer that you work there, and you don't actually start to get the profit sharing until you've worked there for like a year.
But that still means after a year, the omni-goated Anna Kasparian, my fucking spirit animal, is getting paid the same as the janitor after a year. That's insane. That's crazy.
But like even when you look at most
necessarily
like
because they're still
like
in these systems, there's still tenure. It's basically the profit sharing is based off of tenure, effectively.
Yeah,
I guess why not? Like the olive branch I would give is like maybe I think it could be cool to have profit sharing, but the percent is like decided on in the contract. Like I think it's nice that if you're a small company and you're getting bigger, then to be like, hey, instead of just paying you this wage, but that should be decided. It should be fine to decide that maybe you get 1% of the profits or something, as opposed to it gets split equally among the 10 employees, let's say.
I think the way that the way that the grocery store that I'm talking about does it, or like the way that a lot of places do it now, because of the way that you kind of have to do it being through stocks, the way that they do it, where it's based on tenure and it opens up the longer that you're there, the more it opens up. Because like I think it's like you get like maybe like 1% of profit sharing after a year, and then like the longer you're there, the more it opens up. I think doing it that way is fine. I'm not saying like you should get like complete access to like all of the profits right away.
Yeah, but I think even to say you should get access to the profits ever, I think is crazy. If we're talking about TYT as the example, and you're talking about Cenk and Anna, who like literally are like making they're the talent, they're everything behind that, right? And you're saying they want to hire someone to clean. Even after 20 years, that guy shouldn't be making equal money to Cenk and Anna. Like to me, I guess maybe we just disagree on that. To me, it just feels like your payment should obviously be, if they're a part of the ship that's rising, I think it's fine for them to have like a % of the profit. But to put them on equal playing fields, it's just like their skill, their replaceability, right? A janitor is like pretty fungible in a lot of ways, right? Anna Kasparian is not fungible. Okay,
that's my point. As I was going to get into is, what if somebody walks in the door and says, "I'll clean the toilets for $10 an hour, and I don't need to stay in the company"? You're going to say no?
Right, yeah. What if they're like, I'll be a contract worker and you can contract me to clean? Like, then you would obviously just pick that guy. It just feels like you do everything you can to not have employees then, because you wouldn't want a janitor making equal stake to the guy who started the company.
But when you look at this as a general thing, like most companies, in terms of their board directors, they have that general principle that they get shares in the company if they're at that level. Do you know what I mean? There is a certain echelon into the company where it's like they do that profit share mode, and it seems like Vintage Vigilante is in that position where it's like, no, like I would want to do like an escalating thing or whatever, to the point where your average worker who's just doing their 9-to-5 job, like his whole kind of theory is not going to like impact or change based on that as well. The reason why, because I have to head off after this, appreciate you having me on, Confluence. The reason why I kind of like have this kind of like drill down in terms of the socialisms, it seems like a great idea, but in terms of the limiting principle, no one seems to have an answer. At least the people that like push the kind of like the Bernie Sanders or the whole kind of like socialism aspect, where I'd be kind of like more daring to say socialism is needed in terms of certain industries across the nation, which means socialism should have the limiting principle of the nation. Otherwise, you're just going to end up with the delusion of communism. But that then all of a sudden you realize, oh shit, that makes me a national socialist, and a lot of people don't actually want to go down that aspect.
That's valid.
No, we just call it market socialism now. It's cool.
But
Yeah, you
it
just gotta
is one of
rebrand
those
it.
things like, as a nation, you don't want
I'm not a
Lockheed Martin
nationalist,
selling.
so.
Yeah, but exactly, because fundamentally at that point you don't want to be American, which means you're a traitor to the nation. But in terms of like just to use like simple examples, like you don't want Lockheed Martin, for example, selling your equipment to China and Russia, so that has to be socialized. In terms of like big infrastructure, you don't want China buying up like all your roads and all this kind of shit and putting up a toll every 2 miles. Like that wouldn't be a great thing. So you need to nationalize that. Energy would be another aspect. Agriculture, like you don't want China buying up all your farmland and all of a sudden burning all the crops, and now you're into a famine. So there are
Nationalization isn't the only way to solve those problems, though. You could put extra taxes on it to disincentivize those actions without flat out banning them.
Yeah, but once you kind of put it on the board, the third way between capitalism and communism is National Socialism.
I don't know if it's that simplistic, but
it's hard to debate against, though, Tyler. You have to admit.
National Socialism is a specific thing. Like, it's based around, specifically fascism is based around trying to make a syndicalism into a nationalized government, which automatically is a very hard task to do because one of the features of syndicalism is anarchism, and now you're trying to get a state to do what syndicalist anarchists want done. And so in a way the Nazis were preserving the market existing, and so were the fascists, but they were putting their own people in charge, taking the owners away and putting state-friendly actors in there. Neither of them were allowing capitalism to flourish. They were more based on the people, the worker. They were workers' movements, essentially.
Okay, someone educate me on this. Why? How is it National Socialism? Like, isn't Germany just had like a mixed economy? And I know it was like controlled a lot more than our economy, but wasn't it still a mixed economy? Like, what precisely? I get why it's national. But in what sense was it socialized besides just the Germany picking certain industries and trying to socialize those industries?
One of the largest labor unions to ever exist is inside Germany.
The National Socialism just means like socialism with the limiting principle of the nation. So there's only like certain industries that are integral to the national strength and survival that you need. I mentioned, like, for example, like Lockheed Martin, like your warfare, like national defense, all the stuff, core infrastructure, energy, education, stuff like that. That you would necessarily want to nationalize or socialize, depending on what word you want. The reason why the communists call the National Socialist far right is because in the National Socialist system, the vast majority of everything else is just fully capitalistic, like your hairdressers, your retail, your entertainment, all this kind of stuff. Fully capitalistic. We don't give a fuck. We only give a fuck about the key industries that affect the actual national security. You know what I mean? So, like, although it's called National Socialism, what it actually is like the vast majority, like 90% of it is capitalist. It's just that like 10%, like the things, like the different like national security, all this stuff. But I need to pop off. Confluence, appreciate you having me up. And if anybody wants to debate me on National Socialism, you're more than welcome, folks. Just a quick question though before I go. Confluence, do you know what an Irish goodbye is?
Yes, I do, and I know you're about to do one. All right, Gunnar, I'll actually watch the video. I didn't know it was Anna Kasparian. Don't threaten me with a good time. But, Israel's one of her blind spots. Okay, it is. It is. Let me type this in so I don't forget. The Israeli TV moment. Because the dog claim is the one that I think is an extraordinary claim that requires extraordinary evidence. Because I understand other things. Wait, isn't this a Tucker Carlson video? He says Anna Kasparian. Because, Tucker is no friend of Israel either. Okay, anyway, we'll go back to the Kirk debate.
What's your perspective on the idea that like generalizations from experience are fallible. Do you agree with that idea?
Can you repeat the question?
What's your perspective on the idea that generalizations from experience are fallible?
Generalizations from experience. In what context? Yeah, sure.
Okay, because so for example, you look at something like white swans, and for centuries people thought all swans are white. But then you have the philosopher Karl Popper noted that conjecture was falsified when you had a black swan discovered in Australia. So scientific theories should be, in principle, you can disprove them. You can
They're so mad.
You can disprove them because if you're wrong, you want to be able to show that you're wrong. Because if you can't show that you're wrong, then you become dogmatic. Do you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely.
That's correct. Yeah.
So in my view, the reason the pricing mechanism is superior to government is because the government can be very dogmatic at times, because the government does not have an incentive to respond to the needs of or interests of individuals. It has a tendency to self-rationalize its bureaucratic tendencies. Because if you're a business and you make a bad decision, consumers can boycott your goods or services because they don't like them. But if the government produces a good or service and the people don't want them, they can't tell the government not to do it unless they violently overthrow the government. So in my view, the market process is much more scientific because it recognizes that fallibility much better than the government.
The problem, of course, is that the market and the pricing structures are something that existed before the profit model.
I'm not seeing too much. Like, you need the specific. Why is it bad in healthcare? Like,
the premise is that the reason the business will change its course of action is because it has a profit incentive to do so.
Okay, agreed. There you go.
Yeah, but it will also often jeopardize quality of the product for the sake of maximizing efficiency and and cost.
Well, I don't agree with that because of the fact that if a product is bad, then naturally consumers will boycott that product and buy a new product which is better from another competitor.
Not when there's a monopoly. When monopolies exist, the United States being a prime example, and many states have only a single internet provider that will often provide a very subpar service, and yet people cannot do anything about it because they have no alternatives.
See, I don't even know if Lucy's doing an incredibly good job with this, but I just think it's an unwinnable prompt, and so she's going to get the win. Because I feel like she's letting Kirk distract into like all these other like macroeconomic points and stuff. And I don't know if that's like necessary, but that's fine. I don't know if she debates a lot or what, but.
Can you guys see
our chat? Are you familiar with the distinction between a natural and artificial monopoly?
Well,
is that better?
I don't see the relevance for discussion.
Well, but do you understand the difference? That a monopoly can be artificial and propped up by the government versus it can be natural and according to the market processes. Do you understand that distinction?
I understand the distinction.
So what I would argue is that in the case of internet providers, due to the regulations on many things related to internet production, like building internet infrastructure, that is why there's internet monopolies.
What caused those? What caused those regulations to be in place?
I'm not familiar with the specific justifications given.
Could it be that companies have
energy should be like it won't work in healthcare because
to create favorable conditions for their monopolies to thrive?
Possibly.
And that would be part of the profit motive, wouldn't it be?
Not necessarily because, well, okay, it would be part of the profit motive, but not the profit motive as I understand it, because in my view, a profit motive applies to the profit motive.
We didn't get any definitions.
And so when you're talking about the profit motive in a crony system where the government favors some businesses profit motive over others,
I'm not saying about that. I'm talking about companies using all means possible to maximize their profit, and one of those things is eliminating the competition. And they will do it by any means possible, which includes lobbying for profitable laws that will allow them to be a monopoly.
But either way, the point is the solution to that is not getting rid of the profit motive, but the solution to that is getting rid of the government regulations on businesses.
But I'm not arguing for the elimination of the profit motive. The prompt is that certain services and goods would benefit from a lack of the profit motive, which means that I do not have to argue for the
that's the kill shot. That's just obvious, very obvious, low-hanging kill shot.
Okay, but what I'm arguing is that unless you can provide a specific example where the government is better at allocating resources, then you have not provided a specific example.
Correct.
The problem is that it's not about effectively allocating resources. It's about, because that is effectively allocating resources is not always the best thing. The best thing can be just maximizing the needs of the people that need that certain service or good. As I said, there are diseases that only affect a small amount of people, and allocation of
and their internet sucks. I don't know if this is Horse or if this is Lucy. Or maybe it's IJ because he's frozen.
I think it's
switched over
when it comes to what is the best course of action.
Well, there's billions of dollars, like there's charities with billions of dollars. So I would say that if someone has one of these rare diseases where they couldn't be a profit incentive to cure them, they should go to a charity. Because in my view, if they can't be of profit, they can't be of value to anyone else. And by definition, they're not valuable and they don't deserve resources allocated to them.
Well, that's just a fundamental philosophy disagreement. So it has nothing to do with the viability or inviability of the
mask off.
Because I do not believe that people need to be always useful or contribute something in order to deserve something.
So
and that kind of conversation goes.
Kirk's about to call people useless eaters. Just wait.
He's kind of taking this home.
Distributed across the board or not?
Okay, so then what is your ethical stance? Like, what do you think is right? What do you think is ethical?
I feel like there are certain baseline things that we all deserve that we should, as people, as social animals, should be taking care of one
That's
another
why it's the
to
opener.
maximize one another's well-being.
And what evidence do you have for this?
That's my personal belief. I don't need evidence for that.
What evidence? So Kirk, what did you mean by this? If you're still there, Kirk, what's his evidence for his ethical view? What is that? What are you even asking?
I'm asking what evidence you have that it's moral to take care of other people.
What kind of answer were you looking for?
Evidence. I know. Okay.
No, what would be an example of something he could possibly say that would be evidence? Like it's just a moral claim that it's like that you should like help people. Like it's like if you ask me what's my evidence that you should like love your neighbor, are you meaning like where does he get that from? Like what's his moral axioms or like
what? I guess my question is what evidence you have for that.
You're just restating the. I'm asking what you mean.
By
that.
Well, let's see. Okay,
do you mean moral axioms?
How do you have evidence for Einstein's field equations or of gravity? You have evidence because you have evidence.
That's a category error, though. Like I'm asking, what would evidence look like if I'm making the claim you should love your neighbor? Like what evidence would you possibly be looking for to justify that statement?
I know when I see it.
Foundation, like if I asked you, because you obviously follow the 7 Noahide laws, right? Would you, if I asked you what's the evidence that you shouldn't like kill people, would you say my evidence is that God said it? Like, is that what you're looking for?
Yes, my evidence would be that it says so in the Torah, and my evidence that what the Torah says is right is because the Torah was revealed by God, and we ought to follow God's commands because God created all of creation, and the evidence that God created all of creation is because that's the definition of God.
Okay, so you're asking for Lucy's moral axioms or moral framework when you say evidence.
Yeah.
Okay. That's just the evidence thing is confusing, but yeah, if that's what you mean, then that's fine.
Okay, and that which means
that's a strange ask. You want me to prove that's what I believe?
No. What I'm saying is, if it's just your belief, then it's not objectively true. It's not objectively true.
I don't really believe in objective truth, so that's,
well, if you don't believe in objective truth,
that would be another.
So now you have to go on that.
Okay. So is Einstein's special relativity an objective truth? Is Einstein's field equations, are those basically as far as we can tell, like proven physics concepts, are those objective truth? Is 2 + 2 = 4 an objective truth?
It is, as far as we can observe.
Let's go back for a second.
Okay, so then you do believe that there are things.
Go back a little bit.
How far?
That there on pause.
Are those objective truth?
And pause when it says energy appeal. So I want to know what energy appealing to objective truth.
It is, as far.
What's wrong with appealing to objective truth, Ancom? Well, actually, I don't think Ancom's in chat.
Who are you talking to?
Ancom was saying I was appealing to objective truth in the comments just there.
Oh, and like in the comments on screen, I see. Yeah. Well, I mean, this point is it's really tangential to the debate completely. But I mean, if the debate was about this, you would have got a point from me, Kirk, because he just said he doesn't believe in objective truths, and then you asked him if he thinks this thing is objectively true, and he's like, yeah, or she is like, yes. So. That was an easy victory, but again, completely tangential to the debate topic, unfortunately. But if the debate was about that, I think you could have won. Okay, if it was about this objective truth exists.
We can observe it.
Okay, so then you do believe that there are things which are objectively true as far as we can observe them.
As far as we can observe them.
Exactly. So there is objective truth, and so you've made a claim without evidence that it's good for us to take care of other people, and a claim without evidence can be dismissed without evidence.
Do you have evidence that it's not good for us to take care of each other?
I don't need evidence to prove a negative. You need evidence.
It's not a negative. It is a positive claim. We don't need to take care of each other. Do you think we should not take care of each other?
We don't need as a negative claim. It's a claim that does not ascend to the proposition that we should take care of each other.
It's not a negative claim.
It is a negative claim because it's saying I don't believe you.
What do you believe?
So my own ethical stance is something like divine command theory. I believe what is good is what God wills.
How do you know what God wills?
There you go.
So in the weeds. We're so in the weeds.
But the Hebrew Bible is primarily written as
drag him into the Noahide covenant. Kirk, quick.
I believe the Hebrew Bible was written by God and revealed to Moses.
Oh my God, this is so bad.
That claim is the fact that the Jewish people have survived thousands of years throughout history in the face of anti-Semitic persecution.
What are you talking about?
Written as a tool for that survival.
Probably Kirk's stronger argument.
Well, I believe the reason.
Just change the debate entirely to this thing.
Of the Torah one of the more famous,
he has a higher chance of winning this prompt.
He wrote a whole introduction.
If only they'd let him change the prompt to something entirely different mid-debate, he'd be doing fine.
Okay, but take it either way. Even if my metaphysical, it doesn't matter what my metaphysical belief is.
Just
you
stick
still
to
have
debating religion, buddy. You're a lot better at it.
So
okay.
yes, in this case, we're at an impasse because
Yeah, I will say your speakeasy debate against Steelborn, Kirk. That's where you were shining. Okay, you were fucking cooking in that. Okay, you did a good job there.
Yeah,
This one,
like,
you know,
I don't even agree with you spiritually, and I think you demolished Steelborn in that debate.
yeah, Kirk did a good job because I too, I'm well, I don't know what you, I'm way more on Steelborn side of things than young Kirky boy, or sorry, you don't like to be called that.
I'm
young
technically
Kirk.
on. I'm technically on the they're both dumb side. I'm a pagan.
Oh well, now I want to ask you about that. Okay, briefly.
Okay,
brief side quest.
come on, man. We've already
Just
gone
brief
on so many
side quest.
tangents.
Or just brief. I just wanted to what do you mean by that? What do you do? What
So
deity do you fuck with, or what? Say more.
I'm an omnitheist. So technically, I believe that all of the gods exist. The way that I believe in Christianity, though, or the way that I believe in like the Abrahamic religions, though, is I believe in a more modern version of Sethian Gnosticism. Sethian Gnosticism is basically the idea that Jesus didn't come to save us from for God, but to save us from God. Basically stating that God's not this all-powerful being; he's a evil, malicious deity.
Oh, you're fucking demiurge coded.
Yeah, yes, I am.
Okay, I gotcha. Okay,
That's
sorry,
good.
Kirk.
What
I
you
just
think
had
about
to, I
that,
had to clarify
Tom?
that. The demiurge part, I think is crazy. The omnitheist part, we might express it a different way, but I mean, I think Athena exists.
Well,
okay, I've said that before.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason not to. Like, even if you're a Christian, the Bible admits the existence of other gods. So does the Old Testament. Then it's specifically in the Old Testament. So, like, even there's a lot of Jewish people that I've talked to that like believe that other gods exist because of the fact that the Bible does actually state that there are other gods and names a lot of them by name.
See, I don't believe in a polytheistic way. I believe that Athena would be like an expression or like an archetype of an aspect of like a monotheistic god. So I would say these like individuations of like lowercase gods exist, but only as like abstractions or archetypes of the true god.
If you want to get a better example of my argument on this, watch my Trinity debate with Rev Russ on Speakeasy Stream.
Okay, now I'm gonna write that down. Rev Russ.
Yep, I can find it and link it to you.
Okay, you should join the Discord. By the way, you don't have to, but you know, just saying, you ought to. It's a moral ought that I have good evidence for. Okay,
I will.
Yeah, I do want to check out that, and we should talk about this type of stuff maybe one day ourselves if you're interested, because I would love to talk to you more about that.
Like, there's no proving one's beliefs with empirical evidence.
Okay, so I would say we can still pragmatically argue that a country like America has the highest GDP, and it is relatively speaking, the freest market in general. So therefore, it has.
That's maybe true, but it also the highest GDP does not translate into the biggest well-being for most of its citizens.
Okay,
which I would argue is the most important metric.
So is the standard of living higher in America relative to most countries?
Yep.
Depends for whom. After all, America also has the biggest incarceration rate per capita in the world, doesn't it? And
really?
The prison system in America has the
I would
profit
say
motive.
a pro.
Well, first of all, I don't necessarily support the profit motive for the prison system because I think that in the context of
So you do agree with the prompt then?
Well, the prompt is that basically we should decrease. We should go to the profit incentive for industries that don't have them.
No.
Oh no!
The prompt is certain goods and services would benefit from the lack of a profit motive. You just said that you don't necessarily agree with the profit motive when it comes to the prison systems, which means that you agree with the prompt.
Got him.
Well, the connotation of the prompt is the idea that we should generally decrease the amount of industries that have a profit incentive.
No, it just means that there are certain goods and services that would benefit from not having that. It does not mean that we should decrease profit motive-based services across the board. It just means that there are certain cases in which would benefit from the lack of such a motive. And you just gave the example of the prison system, which means that we
Okay, I can see why this was a 10-0. Kirk, you must, I don't mean that as an insult, but you can see why it was a 10-0 too. Like, I understand you're saying you got prompt cucked and stuff like that, but, you know, you are conceding the entire debate at this point, right? Would you agree?
I think that if you took the if the prompt hadn't been what it was, I would have won. If it had been worded differently, I would have won.
Possibly, yeah.
Wow,
That's possible.
I think everyone who's ever debated it said that.
If the prompt was replaced with something completely different, then I agree with you. Well, not even completely. If it didn't have the word certain, I guess. I mean, that's a very important word in a sense. But if that was taken out, then maybe the things would have gone a lot differently. But the certain thing is what gets you.
It's also a lot harder to argue that to remove the entirety of the profit motive. You would have been debating like ANCOM.
Yeah, that's true. There'd be. I guess Lucy probably wouldn't take that position. Even that's the thing. So if the prompt was different, I don't think Lucy would have taken it based on what she's saying about these specific industries. Right? It's not like, at least unless I missed it, it doesn't seem like she's saying you should just take away the profit motive from absolutely everything, unless she does think that. But fun fact, literally every week, Horseradish says you can work together to adjust the prompt and make requests for changes. that is true. But look, it's only Kirk's like, I don't know how many times have you been on Horse. This is the first time, Kirk.
So several times. I've won
several
times. I did win one time at least, and maybe multiple times, but I definitely remember winning at least once.
Okay. It can happen again.
No, I'm going to go 9.
I do, but still, it remains the fact that you kind of.
I'm going to go 9-1 because they both did.
In one sense of the prompt, if you take it literally at face value, yes, but not.
I do take it literally at face value, yeah.
Okay, well, then I guess we'll also end in test. So then my third question is, given the fact that you admit yourself you're not very knowledgeable about economics, why are you arguing against someone who has read books related about economics and
no, don't do this, Kirk. The optics are horrible.
Because I know examples of goods and services that would
I'm taking 1 point from Lucy for not giving any kind of framework.
You agree with it?
No definition.
How do you come to know that? Do you come to know that from speculation, or do you come to look at it from looking at the economic evidence and logical, understanding of the economic system?
I guess I come to that conclusion by.
Remember, we literally saw in chat that I predicted that he was going to go here.
Yeah.
and the only thing left he can do.
Yeah, I feel like Kirk is kind of like backed into a corner. He's like a trapped animal right now. So I mean,
he's gnawing his own leg off.
Well, those that do not have the profit system and looking at outcomes of those systems.
Okay, so how about healthcare? So America has the highest research and development for pharmaceutical drugs.
Okay. Now this is appropriate. Now.
Oh, based. Okay, we'll have some content for next week. Testy says he's debating Saturday America should increase its educational standards and hold kids back more often. Based stance.
Is he going to show up this time?
Yeah, he might run. We'll have to see. But this is that's a Testy taking a based ass stance. Okay, for once in his life.
Now this is appropriate to say relevant.
Do you want to source of that claim?
No.
Nope, I believe you.
What does that have to do with anything?
So you were claiming that healthcare, we could go to the profit incentive in healthcare, despite the fact that in America, where there is a profit incentive for healthcare, there's the highest level of research and development for new pharmaceuticals.
Okay. Now provide me with the data of how many American citizens benefit from the research.
Okay. I don't
think
know
the key part in this is going to be the holding kids back, because I feel like everyone probably thinks the standard should be increased. The holding kids back is the based part, because in Canada you can't hold kids back at all. I don't know if it varies by state in the US, but in Canada you can't even. Doesn't matter. The standards are out the window. You literally just can't hold a kid back at all. They just always get moved forward. Didn't used to be the case, but it is now.
American citizens benefit from it. I imagine some, but either way, foreign citizens might benefit from it.
So that basically proves my point, doesn't it? Because what does it matter if America has the biggest research on certain healthcare if most American citizens will not benefit from the research? Because of the profit motive, because most Americans will not be able to afford the healthcare to benefit.
All right, so we're gonna go over there.
Offered any questions for themselves?
Well, the time's up anyway.
I'm gonna go first.
I would disagree with that.
I know that
I guess I'll have to see how you run it. But
3 questions, just to clarify.
There's always going to be some reason to hold some kids back. Some kids are just going to be,
industries
not very bright or not very perspicacious or.
For the audience, just for the purposes of steel manning that position a little bit, would you name, please, a couple of services or products that you think actually do still benefit from a profit motive? That's again to you first, Lucy.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Absolutely. And just so you know, I'm putting a minute on the clock for you, but it's not like if you keep going after that, I'm going to let you finish your thought. Can you name a few industries, products, services, etc., where a profit motive is still beneficial?
What's up, Chudley?
Actually, I'm not a super big fan of the profit motive, but I guess you could say that the profit motive could be useful in things like entertainment.
Okay.
Although it also leads to, I mean, it depends on how you implement these things. It's never just as simple as profit motive equals good, because when unchecked, it can lead to certain.
I mean, that's a good answer. I guess it does sound like Lucy is maybe more socialist than I expected. But entertainment is a good one. I mean, yeah, I don't know how you would not have a profit motive. I feel like that's pretty integral to probably making good entertainment.
Predatory.
So again, that's not going to match.
Like the
audio, it's not going to match because I need to be hearing it in real time.
It all depends on
the debates will be good, like it just was.
All right, fair answer. Now, Maida, do you have a question ready for Lucy, please?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
So my question would be, do you think that profit motives are required in some sectors of the government to be able to generate enough value to allocate those resources to the government subsidized sectors that you believe should have a more ethical approach to how they provide the goods or services to the constituents?
So are you asking if the government should provide, should create a profit motive for certain things to subsidize the other things that should not have a profit motive?
Well, I'm asking if you believe it's required.
No.
Okay. All right. Easy enough. And Lutch, Indian Jesus, do you have a question ready for Lucy as well?
Yeah, just a small question, maybe a bigger answer. I heard a lot of the idea of with healthcare specifically. I'm curious, and it seems like you presented a good argument that there are places in healthcare that would not necessarily improve with the profit motive. But, and I apologize if I missed it, can you give me a specific example of a product or service within healthcare that would be improved without the profit motive?
Well, I gave the very classic example of a cure or a treatment for a ailment that does not affect a huge amount of people. Therefore, creating this procedure and delivering this procedure would not generate a profit because there's not enough people that would buy into it, quote unquote.
Word up. Sounds good to me.
All right. Good stuff. Now, questions for energy. Got a lot of them. Which one do I choose from?
I forgot to ask for a definition.
So, and you actually did sort of say something to this, and I want to circle back to it, not to hold you down on it, but because I would like to hear you articulate it a little bit better.
Every time he switches to me, I'm drinking.
About how the profit motives benefit the prison system specifically. So, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I do not believe the profit motive benefits the prison system, and I do not believe there should be private prisons.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I misunderstood the prompt. I thought this was about decreasing profit motive in general. So then maybe I misunderstood the prompt. Sorry.
Gotcha. Well, that's all right. Go ahead, hit energy with a question.
Shit, I didn't mean to say that out loud.
If we rely on profiteering to determine the necessary consumer interest of a product or service, wouldn't this destroy or disenfranchise millions or potentially billions of people from niche sectors?
See, if I do the judging on horses, this is what my biggest thing would be if I'm streaming. I'd be so worried that I would like fuck up the mute button and then I would fucking just like say some bad shit thing to everyone. I don't know how Lutch is more paranoid about that.
Society running.
Can you give an example?
Healthcare.
In healthcare, if there is a disease that affects a significant portion of the population, there will certainly be a profit that could be gained from investing in research and development for it.
Okay. And Lutch, question for energy, please.
Okay. Yeah, I just was curious. I should have asked this to both of you, but a definition of profit motive.
Okay, so in my view, the definition of profit motive that I use would be something like the ability to earn more than you put in, invest in something in the context of a private business, basically earning more than invest to create a good or service. So I create a good or service for $100 and then I earn $120 for that good or service that I create. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You're done.
All right. So then we're going to go ahead and go back to our first debater here, since it looks like we don't have any questions on this debate coming in from the chat. I'm going to kick this back over to you now, Lucy. So you're going to get 3 minutes on the clock here for you to be able to spin as you see fit, uninterrupted, closing thoughts, closing arguments. I'll start the clock whenever you start to talk.
All right. So I guess I would say that I would start by saying that answering the thing.
Again, I'm just going to leave it here for this. The main debate will be.
It's written. You can just type in profit motive, the fundamental drive for individuals and businesses to maximize financial gain. It is the core principle of capitalist economies, incentivizing innovation, efficiency, and risk-taking by rewarding organizations of producing goods and services that people value, which has its ups and downs. And I would say that the profit motive means that if it is deemed that a service and good will not bring in more revenue than needs to be expended in order to do that thing, then that thing will not be done, which means that, for example, in the case of transportation, there are certain rural areas where you do not have a huge amount of people living that would not have that public transportation. Just because
Shout out to Jennifer, the only one who has donated so far. 1, 2, 3, 4, the Overlord.
Profit would not be made.
Thank you. So very much outsponsored. Yo, goddamn self. Very much appreciated.
People have to be met in order to make in the profit. And I feel like that is not the best motivator for providing certain goods and services. I feel like there are certain goods and services that benefit from looking at the problem not from the perspective of how much additional revenue can be brought from that thing, but how can we, in the best way, provide that service or good to the people that need it without necessarily thinking of whether or not it will bring in revenue or not.
All right. Sort of sounds like you're landing it there, so we'll go ahead and close it off. Energy, 3 minutes is on the clock now for you, uninterrupted. Please give us your closing arguments.
All right, Kirk, when it's over.
The benefit of capitalism relative to other economic systems, for example, fascism, socialism, communism, etc., is that capitalism allows individuals to vote with their dollar. In a socialist, fascist, or communist economy, the government can, well, either the government or other people control the means of production in such a way that you can't falsify their economic decisions. In capitalism, you can. If a business makes a bad decision, for example, they make a low quality product, you can always vote with your dollar to boycott them. In a socialist, communist, or fascist economy, you can't. What the profit incentive under capitalism does, in my view, is gives a reason for businesses to invest in the more effective ways to allocate resources in the context of big areas where there can't be significant profit incentive to invest, like in a rural area or in a very niche disease. Then I would say those people should turn to private charities, and they are not significant enough of a population size that the government ought to allocate resources towards them. Because by definition, if they aren't able to create a profit incentive for others, then they're not valuable to others, and therefore they cannot be of enough economic value to justify allocating resources to them. My opponent claimed she does not have a specific ethical justification for her beliefs, and that's fine. But if she's going to argue from the ethical side that we should have to take care of each other,
that's what you said last week.
Or evidence. I could arue for my medical position.
I hope it gets actually better after this week.
On a pragmatic level, we all agree that we should have a system which benefits more people's well-being, right? So if that's the case, I believe it's obvious that capitalism has increased people's well-being relative to socialism and communism. Because under capitalism in countries like America and Europe, the poverty rate and standards of living are standards of living are much higher, and the poverty rate is much lower relative to other socialist and communist countries. For example, during the Soviet Union,
we didn't get that argument.
or fascist economies like Mussolini's Italy or Hitler's Germany, or modern-day communist countries like Cuba or China.
Kirk, you have a fan. I'm a big Kirk fan, unironically.
Can be seen
Look at that.
Not just through these examples. For example, to allocate resources more effectively, like the fact that America, with its for-profit healthcare system, has the highest level of research and development, and the highest social if anyone wants.
So that I'm not
and so with that, I'll say, if you oppose capitalism, then you are opposing the system that increases people's well-being. So while you might not be malicious about it, you are fighting against your own best interest, because capitalism is good for basically everyone. The only people who aren't going to benefit from capitalism are.
This is a fair closing, Kirk. I mean, you already said that you took the prompt in a different way, so I don't know what else you could really say here. Yeah. So I mean, it's not. Yeah, it's just a general, defense of the profit motive, but I don't know what else you could do at this point.
Yeah.
So I think it's
the people
fine closer.
They can always some charities, and typically those people are interned gulags or concentration camps under socialist or fascist regimes anyways. And with that, the time's over.
Is it okay if I interject something, or
not yet? But I'll tell you what. Here's the thing, Lucy. So we're gonna be going to the judges. You will get the chance to put a couple of words in there after the judges have rendered their judgment and such, and the audience has.
Anyway, the bottom line is the judges they gave one gave me a 3 points and the other person and Lucy 7 points. One gave Lucy 10 points and me 0 points, and then as you know, the audience voted unanimously against me. So that's the judgment.
Do they say not nice things?
Not that I recall.
Are you not wanting us to watch what they say, Kirk?
You can watch if you want. I'm just saying that's what happens.
Yeah. I kind of want to see what their feedback. I mean, I'm assuming it's going to be maybe what we already pointed out, but
go sooner than that.
The judgments are quick, right?
But I do want to say beyond anything else.
I got a hard out in like 10 minutes, but I feel like we might as well, get it. I'm sorry to hear that, Testy. I truly am. Hope things get better.
Very much for your performance tonight. That was absolutely wonderful, and we definitely hope that you're going to keep showing up for us. Again, jot it down, and we will come back to it. But somebody else is probably going to say what you're going to say before you get the chance. Let's hear what the judges have to say first. So, with that said, I'm going to drop the link here in the chat for everybody. Boom! That is where we go to vote. So, if you can see that link, go ahead and click that link. Give us a vote.
I dropped it in
the most persuasive
the chat already.
Do you believe that it was Lucy Hayes on the affirmative, or do you believe that it was Energy to Hampter on the negative? Again, we are not looking for you to vote who you like the most or who you agree with, but who you think made the most persuasive case tonight. So without further ado, we're going to go straight over to our judges. I'm going to go to you first, Maida. Maida, I assume you are ready to give us your judgment on a 10-point scale, my friend.
Yes, sir. So I guess I'm going to start off with the affirmative side, my overview of it. there was a good sort of line of argumentation talking about government subsidies, promoting certain things that the government deems to be important, how they allocate those. There was during the midpoint of your argument, you made a strong prompt claim. I thought that was really good. It seems to have largely went unrebutted. You used the double down on the previous ethics claim that you had established. You called out the religious ethics claims with the Torah, how that book has an overlap with other like religious texts. That was good. Calling out the idea of cost of living not being translated to quality of life as a result of GDP was another good one. And there was partial concession of the prompt on behalf of the opposition. The only negative argument that I really had against you was that there was a seemingly broken clock fallacy at some point in there where you just got morally lucky and happened to arrive at the correct position without having the knowledge to be able to back it up in the argumentation that he was providing, which I gave you a negative point, but you're still up on that regard. As for the negative side, talking about the Austrian model was something that I thought was very strong. Making appeals to the literature that you've read and have established were largely done, I would argue, poorly for the most part as a result of the fact it just seemed like an appeal to authority and not engaging with the argumentation that was being provided, even if it was more simplistic in nature.
Not all appeals to authority are fallacious.
Things like crony systems being susceptible under the free market, which was something that isn't necessarily fixed in the opposition's argument. I gave you positives for that. However, when you brought up private charity being an alternative to a government subsidization system, it seems that this is just an alternative that is being created for a lack of availability in your system, which I thought is something that was problematic. There was a slight prompt concession towards the end and an appeal to authority, which continued to come up throughout the debate, which I don't think is an intrinsically bad thing. But I think that you had some good rebuttals as to the claims of quality of living in the United States compared to lower GDP countries. And with that, I will move on to my final score. I give it 7-3 to Lucy.
7-3 to Lucy on the affirmative. All right, very cool. Go ahead and give us your judgment, Mr. Lech. I assume you are ready as well.
Yes, sir. Well, you said all of the things. I agree with basically everything that Mike has said. I do think that structurally both sides made maybe mistakes is even a strong way to put it, but in terms of like setting up the frame, giving definitions, and as Mike said, throughout the debate, then appeals to authority, and really bring trying to I respect it, trying to bring it into the objective morality debate. But I think that was a signal to at least me that this guy's reaching.
It's not about reciting. If you don't know what you're talking about, you don't know what you're talking about. And your opinion is not as valid as someone who does their research and actually knows what you're talking about. Knowledge is hierarchical. Some people are higher in the hierarchy than you. You have to accept your role in the hierarchy.
What you're doing is literally an appeal to authority fallacy. That's what you.
Not all appeals to authority are fallacious.
Not all appeals to authority are fallacious. Correct. When you're appealing to an authority on, when you're referring to stats and stuff, that's not fallacious. But the way that you're doing it right now of saying if you're not well read enough, your opinion doesn't matter, that is a fallacious appeal to authority. It's also an ad hominem in the way that you did it during the debate. It's
not an ad hominem. You don't know what words mean.
The way that you did it during the debate was literally an ad hominem because you used it as
words mean.
That is what you're discrediting his argument by based on his knowledge or her. You're discrediting her argument based on what you perceive her knowledge base to be. That is an ad hominem.
That's an ad hominem. An ad hominem is when you say, "Well, I'm going to take this arbitrary fact about you and use that to discredit the argument." But if it's not an arbitrary fact, if it's you objectively don't know what you're talking about, that's not an arbitrary fact. So it's not an
ad hominem by definition, brother. I'm gonna literally read the definition of an ad hominem, specifically the one that's in Radish's rules section, in that big fallacies thing, right? Attacking your opponent's character or personal traits in an attempt to argument. Attacking their knowledge is attacking their personal traits, buddy.
Well, I don't care what Radish's thing is. That's not how words work.
But that you are discrediting the argument because you perceive Lucy to have a lack of knowledge. So instead of going after just the argument, you're just saying, I'm dismissing the argument. And one of the reasons I'm doing that is because you just don't have enough knowledge. You haven't read enough economists. You're not well studied enough. That is the ad hom part. Just focus on the arguments. Don't focus on the perceived credentials.
But let's say I'm in a debate with the physicist. Even if I'm right, if the physicist clearly knows more than I about physics, then there's no point in me arguing against the physicist. It's one thing for me to have my opinion. But in the context of a public debate, no. There's a certain point in which you should have the intellectual humility.
Also, the knowledge of the economic philosophers doesn't necessarily matter. It's the knowledge of how it works in practice that matters when you're actually debating economics.
Well, she doesn't even know how it works in practice because she doesn't know any of the statistics or or schools of thought about how to interpret the statistics, which are just as important as the statistics itself.
It's weird that you say, even if in your physics example, Kirk, that you're saying even if you were right, but the person knows more overall about physics, then you don't think you should be arguing it? Like, even if you were right about what you're saying?
Well, okay, so if it's like, let's say I, as someone with a slightly above average knowledge about physics, meet someone who has like a bachelor's in physics, and we just kind of talk, and I say like, hey, I disagree with your opinion. That's one thing, but I would never go toe to toe in a public debate with a PhD theoretical physicist in the context of physics.
Right. I get that, but I'm saying if you found yourself in a debate with somebody that did have that, but you are right and your points are valid, it would be shitty of him to be like, look, kid, I have a PhD in physics, and so you just got to trust me on this. Like, that wouldn't be a great argument for him to use, right?
I suppose, but I'm just saying in this context, I don't think it's fallacious to point out if you don't know anything about economics, your opinion on economics is not as valid as someone who knows some things about economics. I just don't think think that's inherently fallacious. You can say it's like not important, but it is not. I just don't think it's fallacious because there is some reason to believe it.
I guess what you probably will agree at least is rhetorically it's a terrible strategy. Like optically it looks awful, right? Like even if I was to grant that what you're saying is true, which I don't, but even if I was, just from like how a debate works, right? You're going to be judged on your rhetoric. You're going to be judged on what the perceptions of what you're doing. It's not a good. I don't think it's like a helpful debate strategy. I guess I think you'd agree with that.
Yeah, and that's fine. Yeah.
Maybe you got prompt cucked here.
We built a bridge.
That the prompt itself would be
even he said I got prompt cucked.
And at the end of the day, I don't really see how we can go any other way.
The thing is, I guess you prompt cucked yourself. Like this was something that I think this is what I mean. I pointed this out before hearing Lutch pointed out, before hearing like Lucy point. Like, so it seems like this isn't. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like this. I don't think the prompt had much ambiguity. I think as it's written, it's very clear, and I think you probably should have adjusted the prompt. But I mean, that's a lesson that you learned. So I think that's fine. But yeah,
win because you conceded. So I was looking hard to try to give a point.
See, when I got prompt cucked would have been on grids when who was that? When K2 made me debate if holding hands was gay. And yeah, and I took that in a very different way because because there's some ambiguity in what exactly that means and what all the words. That's getting prompt cucked, okay?
And I think in general you did a really good job, but with multiple concessions, I got to go 10-0.
I assumed it was men holding hands with men. Okay, that's how I took the prompt, but he just meant in general.
All right, 10-0 for the affirmative. So audience chat, guys, it's already been decided, but I still want to see where you guys landed on this. Please give that link a click. You see it in the chat, no matter which chat you're in. Just, it costs you nothing. Click it, but only click it once. Otherwise, you're playing with it. And we'll see where you guys landed. That's it.
Okay, and well, I guess we know this. The first complete unanimous decision in Horseradish history. But that's fine. You know what, Kirk? Yeah, I mean, your main thing is obviously just that you mistook the prompt, and then that would be my feedback. And then some of the I know you disagree about the appeals to authority, but I think just rhetorically it doesn't look good. You at least agree with that.
I will agree with that. Yeah, rhetorically speaking, it's not a good look, but I still think there is a grain of truth to the idea that there is a problem with people who don't know what they're talking about, pretending to know what they don't know.
Sure. Yeah, sure. I would agree with that statement.
This is something that I said last night while you were AFK, whenever I was actually able to join in, right? This is something that both you and Circa do, and you do it more than Circa. And it's already annoying when Circa does it. Like, you both of you need to tone back how much you directly reference philosophy, because it knowing the philosophy is good, right? But like directly referencing it just makes it look like you're relying on the philosophy itself instead of actually interpreting the philosophy for practical applications.
Bam, big own on Circa.
Get wrecked, John.
Circa. The problem with Circa is that he speaks in a way that he I think he often equivocates on language and uses word games.
Whoa, quit making racial slurs at the kettle pot.
I don't play word games.
Hey, young Christian. No, but you do. Now that
part of what debate is.
Vigilante pointed it out, there is some similarities between how you and John Zerka debate in some ways.
It feels like there's some weird dead naming thing. It feels like when you call him John Zerka, it feels like there's this weird dead naming concept.
That would mean that he used to be named John Zerka, which maybe.
You doxing him?
I know him by Circa. That's how I know him.
I know him by John Zerka. That's how I've always known him. So
I know him by that guy on the FBI watch list wanted for serial killing.
I am curious, Confluence. Are we done with this?
Yes, we are. Yep.
Do we have a head out? Do we have a head out for tonight?
Yeah, unless you have any final thoughts or something.
I mean, let me ask you this: when do you think an appeal to authority is not fallacious?
I think, yeah, I wouldn't say they're always fallacious. I think if you're saying that, like, if we're talking about the cancer, like we were talking before about the cancer drugs, I think it's fine to say, look, the most medical authorities agree with this. And now I don't think that's a slam dunk because, of course, medical authorities could be wrong, or there could be something that they're being, ideologically captured, or there could be something. But I think it's fine to point out. I don't think that's fallacious to say, look, the people who study cancer and who do all this stuff, they conclude that ivermectin is not helpful. Now, that's a point. It doesn't mean it's like a definitive point. So I think that's a fine thing to do, right? But you're still having to like make an argument. You're not just like 100% just relying on an authority. Because I think in my mind, I don't know if this is even technically correct, but I think there's like two ways to see it. One is that you're kind of refusing to make an argument yourself, and you're just saying, well, all these people believe it. And then when someone's giving you a counter example, you're like, well, no, I disagree because all of the cancer doctors say this. I think that would be one type of like fallaciousness. And again, this is just how I see it. I'm not saying this is technically true. And another type would be, appealing to like a bad authority or an authority that's like not actually good. And so, there's various things that we could talk about, like when you say, Kirk, about like when we're talking about like the trans stuff, you're like, well, the majority of these things will say this about the effects of HRT or this and that. It's like, well, if I then say, okay, but I think that's fine that you say that, but I think there might be some ideological capture and I want to go into this specific topic or look at this specific data, and you're like, you refuse to do that, let's say, then I would say that's a fallacious appeal, even though they are
I do think in the context of the trans debate, I think I may have done that before. But in the context of economics is a harder science than psychology. And so when I appeal to economist or my knowledge of economist writings more than someone else's, I do think that carries a little bit more weight because it is a harder science relative to psychology, and it's more mathematically rigorous.
Yeah, I don't think it's bad, for example, to point out that most economists reject the labor theory of value. It doesn't mean that the labor of value theory is definitely wrong, but I think that's I wouldn't say that's fallacious to point out that like the people who actually study this, at least it probably means something that they all think that this doesn't work. Then I think but if you just end it there, then that's where I think, right, if there's some follow-up to say, well, okay, but this is why I think they might hold those views, and this is why I think they might be wrong. And then if you were to refuse to engage on the actual points, then to me that's
but to be fair, I did bring up the argument about the pricing mechanism as an independent extension of their argument.
No, I'm not saying that every time you brought up economists or something you were doing an appeal to authority. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying in certain instances it felt like instead of going into the argument, you would just punt into, this is what the economists think, and just why not use your knowledge? This is kind of maybe what Vigilante was saying with the philosophy stuff. Like, use the philosophy, but you don't have to bring it out in an explicit manner. Take the philosophy and then use it and apply it contextually into the conversation you're in. So in the same way, take the economists but instead of saying the economists say this, then just take the points and then say the points naturally without having to like appeal to them. I'm not saying it's always bad to appeal to them, but it's why not just internalize those things?
But I'll tell you why, because it's more rhetoric in this context. I do think it is more rhetorically effective to say the people who study this, who know what they're talking about, agree with me more than they agree with you.
I don't know if that's super rhetorically
not when
effective.
You're referencing philosophy, not when you're referencing a philosopher. That's
Well,
not
first
more
of all,
rhetorical.
but in this context, they mostly reference economists, not philosophers. And even in the context of philosophy, that is true.
I don't know if in philosophy that's like, again, why not just internalize the philosophers and just make obviously they're making, if you're talking about Wittgenstein, he obviously has made the argument. So instead of like just punting to his opinion on like language being private or whatever we're talking about, why not then just make the argument? You could say that this is where I got the argument from, but then just make the argument, demonstrate that you know it, argue for that point. Right, like to me, that's always more effective.
Well,
than being
when I
like,
talk about
this
philosophy,
philosopher says this.
I do generally say like, yes, I got this from someone else, but here's why I agree with the argument. In the context of economics, though, I don't think it's the same thing, because with philosophy, it's more about arguments. In the case of economics, because it's more scientific, if I have the evidence and it's collected by an economist, I can just say, hey, if you want the evidence, go look at this economist's writings. Like, I think that's reasonable.
It is and it is and it isn't. Like the other thing is too, I think if you're going to bring up something specific, then it's like it might be good to have more specifics on hand, because it really is not very helpful in a live discussion to just say, read this economist. Like, it's like that's
the problem is that you're effectively trying to have the economist make the argument for you instead of actually making the argument yourself.
Well, it's because it's not about arguments; it's about evidence. And if the economist provides evidence, then the evidence stands up regardless of what the arguments are.
But it's similar to John Zerka when he was debating Andrew Wilson, right? And when I was talking to him about all that, right, he's like, he would kind of repeatedly be like, well, just read Paxton. And it's like, you should be able to explain all of this without me having to read Paxton. The debate prompt wasn't about Paxton.
And sometimes,
right?
Hold on. Sometimes we can't do your homework for you. Sometimes you got to do your own homework.
Yeah, but it's an arbitrary assignment of a homework, which is not how a debate works. If the prompt, like in the Zerka Andrew Wilson thing, the thing was just about, is Trump a fascist? John Zerka is going out of his way to pick Paxton's palingenetic ultranationalism and the fascistic minimum. But that's a thing that he's going into. It's not Andrew Wilson's job to know ahead of time what kind of authors, and we saw this in Zerka's his recent debate when he's talking about Tugby. It's like, that's not a part of the prompt. So you have to take Tugby and you have to explain it in a coherent way that people can understand. It's not doing your homework for you. It's no one would know that Zerka's going to talk about Tugby.
It's the same thing that happened to him on Friday night. I brought up John Locke for one sentence just to talk about how the distinction between forfeiting your rights and your rights being inalienable can't be taken away from you is a stupid distinction. And his entire 10 minutes was trying to get us to dive deeper into Locke. And it's like, bro, no, I want to argue the prompt. I don't want to talk about what Locke said. Who gives a flying fuck what Locke said? What do you say? This is what I say. And he had nothing for it. We essentially just stalemated each other, and no debate was had in those 10 minutes. But because my partners did so well, we won the debate.
Oh yeah, we watched that. I forgot about that.
Yeah, you just filibustered him.
Yeah, it really got into the weeds after the Locke stuff. So yeah, that's my thing. I think it's always better for if Zerka did this, if you did this, and sometimes you do this, Kirk. I'm not saying you always do like the bad stuff, obviously, but I think it's always better, at least in my opinion, to internalize the stuff and then turn it into your own argument that you're applying in that situation, as opposed to just just telling somebody to go read this or go, and it's fine to quote, it's fine to do this, but if you just say, study the Austrian School of Economics, it's not very helpful in a live, discussion or debate.
Yeah, and then I'll say this. I probably should have said not harped as much as I did on the thing of credentialism, but I was just mainly bringing it up just to highlight that someone is super confident that they're we should have this economic system when they admit themselves she doesn't know that much about economics. It's just to me, I don't understand that mindset of having such a strong opinion of something you know so little about. I just don't get that.
I would say, so like I'll use myself as an example, because like I'm not really super well read on like the economic philosophy, but I've studied the practical applications of economics in order to debate it enough that I'm confident in debating it. Because I personally don't necessarily think that the philosophy necessarily matters too much, because it's the idealist interpretation of how things should work, and then not the practical application of how they do work. and I would also apply this to Marx, and this is why, while a lot of my policies and stuff, they are very clearly Marxist, I don't even really consider myself a Marxist anymore, because I even consider the Marx's interpretation of like socialism and communism, and even and Lenin's interpretation of these things as idealist. So I don't go based off of what they say. I go based off of what actually works in practice.
Okay, but if you don't know anything about economics, how do you know what works in practice?
By studying the practical application instead of the philosophers.
Well, then you're studying economics, but in order to understand how to interpret the economic data, because data doesn't speak for itself, you have to have a pre-existing school of thought you're interpreting it from. It's not about studying the philosophers, it's about studying the underlying philosophy, that is to say, the underlying conceptual bridge you use to interpret the data, because data never speaks for itself, data is always interpreted. There's no such thing as evidence for anything, there's only evidence which, if you interpret it in a context, can support something, but nothing can be evidence of anything by itself.
Also,
hey, Testicles.
Hey, what's up, guys? There was a point. This is like, I think it was the after panel, because I don't know if you know Horse's streams, like his structure. It's like all the debates go through, and then at the end they kind of go over each prompt and spend like 30 minutes on each as a group discussion. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that got brought up was about economics was something to do with like it being like scientific. I was like, well, my personal thing is like, well, economics is under humanities, like it's considered to be a soft science. Like there is a scientific like not application, but like a process that you can apply to it. But I think, I don't know if it was Kirk or somebody was arguing like I personally don't think it's as rigorous as is implied.
It's a science. It's a soft science, sure, but a soft science still has the word science in it for a reason.
I agree,
right? But it is very like sociologically.
But either
coded,
way,
you know,
take it
like,
either way. Even if it's not a hard science, that doesn't mean any old Joe Schmo's opinion is as valid as an expert's, right? So even if it's not a hard science, that doesn't mean your opinion is as valid as someone who's more knowledgeable than you. Because even soft sciences, you have to know some things about the subject you're talking about for your opinion to be valid.
And I agree with what you said before. Like you do, especially with economics and I guess other fields, like especially with economics, actually. Like with chemistry, there's less of that sort of interpretation that's needed. Like well, I guess chemistry is a bad example because it's a hard science. But regardless, like I agree with what you're saying. Like you have to have you need some sort of lens by which that you're viewing the data and interpreting it through, right? I guess where I usually get caught up is that, especially in economic terms, and I'm not great with the economy stuff, but I know there's this like prevailing thinking, which I think has been adopted, which is that when you're in like a recession, you spend more to like stimulate the economy to get yourself out of the recession, or like when the market dips, that's when you spend more. It's very counterintuitive. I don't know exactly which economist like proposed that, but that's kind of what we do now. And I think this is my view broadly of the economy. There are so many things that happen that are unprecedented, and this is why I think the predictive power is somewhat lacking, because like you can see what works kind of after it's worked, or you see the like there are absolutely probably things that hold more consistently than other things. But for me, like large market shifts, or like even like when crypto kind of became legitimized by the government, and like you could, it got tied into fiat currency, that was a question mark. That's unknown. There was no like, I don't see how there could be like an economic school of thought or theory that could be like, well, this is how it's going to go, because nobody had any idea. So,
yeah. And,
so are you familiar with the concept of like evolutionary psychology, like as a field?
I am very skeptical of that field, but I am.
Well, but putting that aside for a second, evolutionary, because you really shouldn't be. Evolutionary psychology and sociobiology are studies of behavior in the context of biological, like evolutionary origins of behavior, and so you can definitely study economics in a scientific way if you ground it in something like our natural biological
It's just
ways
it's
of
funny
being.
to me that you bring up that example because I would feel that's what I was thinking of when Testy was talking. It's the same thing where you're looking back at something and there's really no way to know if you're right. It's all
Well,
like
so for
hindsight.
example,
And so the predictive power is kind of like
for
lacking
example,
because it's just not.
confluence. In the book The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins, he describes that human behavior, you can explain human behaviors which is altruistic in the context of evolutionary psychology, because basically from an evolutionary biological perspective, if you are more altruistic to your kin, then your genes are going to be propagated. And so altruism and emergence of cooperation, coordination can be explained from evolutionary psychological terms. So we can explain behavior.
Anything. You could invent a fake animal that doesn't exist and you could explain why it exists through evolutionary psychology. That's the problem. Like I can describe a fictitious animal and you could and some evolutionary psych could explain why that has to exist, or not why it has to, but why it does exist. All right, that's the problem. You can always come up with an explanation.
Energy. Well, hold on.
Vigilante?
Energy. I need you to sit back and actually analyze for a second, because you would have had 4 people if Tyler stayed, but you have multiple people that are not going to agree on a whole lot of things, right? Sitting here telling you the exact same thing.
What are you guys telling me?
Yeah, that's not relevant. I mean, you could be right and everybody else could be wrong. That's definitely possible.
But what exactly is the thesis is what I'm confused about.
I don't have. I jumped in here a bit late. I don't know. I kind of did just say whatever. I don't know if it was even really.
Vigilante, what's your thesis?
Basically, that you need to rely more on interpreting the philosophy instead of actually just quoting the philosophers directly.
Well, I never in the debate the only philosopher I quoted was like Milton Friedman, and he's an economist, and that was one time. So like when I was bringing up, I read the Austrian School of Economics. I wasn't saying I wasn't quoting anyone by name. I was just saying I'm more familiar with the subject matter and the concepts than you are. That's all I was saying.
Well, no, I won't. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, sorry. You guys go ahead.
But either way, when it comes to evolutionary psychology, what I was saying was just that when you have something like altruism, the only way, as far as I can tell, to explain it is through evolutionary biology, because of the fact that if you are altruistic with your kin, then they'll pass on your genes, and that's the only way to explain altruism is evolutionary psychology.
Yeah, with evolution. So I read a specific study. I could track it down, and this was kind of where my skepticism sort of arose. And I'm not familiar with the field more broadly, but it dealt with disgust response between men and women, and basically why do men have like a higher threshold for disgust than women do? And it kind of like postulated these things that went through it, and ultimately, it was interesting. It was an interesting read, and it said that like, well, because women get pregnant, they have to be more selective with their mates, and so they would be more. It makes sense that they would be more sensitive to disgust, and this could be from like gore to like feces, like all the usual stuff that people find disgust with. And men have a higher threshold for that because they're less concerned with. It doesn't affect, I guess, their mating as much, but women need. The argument was like why women are more selective in choosing mates or something, and like I read through this whole thing and I'm like, all of this makes a lot of intuitive sense. Like they lay out a good argument for it. Where I got stuck was just that it comes off as just like kind of a story. Like it's like that makes sense from an evolutionary perspective why this would have developed, but it seems unfalsifiable because there's nothing. Because you're like there's probably some value to doing that process, but how can you ever verify that? Like,
hold on, you just said a contradiction. You said it's unfalsifiable, but how could you verify it? Verification and falsification are the exact opposite. Verification is when you prove something right. Falsification is when you prove something wrong. So which is it?
I think he's saying the same thing, right? He's saying that you can't.
Wait, so if it's unfalsifiable, it means that it cannot be proven. Isn't that correct?
No, unfalsifiable means it can't be disproven. Falsification means disproven.
Oh, not capable of being proven false. Oh, interesting. Maybe I've been using that incorrectly. So, well, I guess both. It can't be proven.
It's both.
Yeah, I guess both. Like, even if I tripped up, but I guess because I'm putting the question more to you, like, and I'll track down the paper if you want to read it. But like even with the altruism thing with Dawkins proposes, like, in what way could you ever, like, there's no sort of peer review process. There's no.
Here's how you can prove it wrong, and here's how you'd prove it wrong. If you could explain if you could explain the phenomena of altruism through a way other than like genetic wanting to pass on your kinship, if you could find another explanation for that in the theory of evolution to explain altruistic behavior, then yes, if you could find another mechanism of altruism.
That doesn't prove it wrong, though. Like with Testy's example, I could come up with probably like 5 different things that would probably be equally as intuitive. That maybe men have to go to war, and so they just naturally have to be more ready to like deal with gore, or they're hunting animals more. They're just going to be around gross stuff more often. Or maybe it's women that they're around kids and they have to change diapers, and maybe they're in caretaker roles, so maybe that's what they're more like. You could come up with equally compelling cases, and if you had someone smart enough do it. The problem is you could come up with 5 theories that all sound compelling and all like you could read each one, and anyone who read each one would be like, that makes sense. It's like a fucking Barnum effect, like with astrology and stuff, where it's like each one you read, you'd be like, oh yeah, that checks out. That's got to be the case. And then you read the next one, you're like, oh, actually, maybe that's the case. And that's like all of evolutionary psychology.
Yeah.
But with let me ask you this: do you think this is not an appeal to authority, because I do think this is actually just think about it logically. Do you think Dawkins, as like a peer-reviewed scientist, would create a theory which you could never in principle test? Like, I don't think he would make it an inherently untestable theory.
If it deals with the past, it is untestable. How would you test it?
Okay,
like I said, you could test it. Gave, how would you prove that wrong? Because you already said we could come up with something else. I just did. So how do I test if it's my war hypothesis or if it's the mate selection thing that women need to get the ick more because they can only have one baby at a time and stuff? Like, how would we test which one is on why they have different discuss thresholds?
I don't know. I'm not a biologist, so I don't know what tests you could do. But I don't believe he would make something that you couldn't in principle test. Like,
so he's making a theory, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, but it's a theory which is testable.
Yes, well,
it's you can't come up with any test for.
No, biology could test for
just because I can't come up with the test personally doesn't mean there isn't a test out there.
Well, no, but here's where I'm going to delineate, because with biology, I think that what type of testing you could do is you could look for genetic markers, and you could you can sort people into buckets. And I understand that there are sort of the unknowns and there's mutations and all these things, but this is part of the Human Genome Project, which they've started. They could do it for diseases and stuff, but you could also probably find, hey, people who tend to give to charity more often, maybe they have this particular marker in their gene.
But how does that? That's true, but how does that explain anything?
Well, I'll land the plane, because the other side of it is when we're talking about evolutionary psychology, that is removed in a way from the hard genetic factors, because you're talking about one, it's the evolution, and then the psychology. So you sort of have to make 2 estimates, or 2 guesses, I guess. So and it could be an educated guess. You could factor in these other things, and you're saying this is why I think this is a good explanation. But I think that's what you sort of have to do. You sort of have to pick from multiple fields. But yeah, so that's why I guess I differentiate it from something like biology, where you can directly observe certain things.
I think the problem with both the altruism thing and the example that you brought up is you could find maybe a genetic marker for altruistic behavior, and you could find probably a genetic marker for having a high disgust threshold. But even if you had all of that and you knew what genes were responsible, that still isn't giving you the answer to why these were selected for. That part is always going to be a guess. Even if you have the biology and you know exactly what genes are causing what, you would still be asking the question, well, what happened in our evolutionary history to make these things the way they are? And that part is still going to always just be untestable.
You could then look
another way to test the selfish gene theory, that basically are we altruistic in order to have our kin pass on our genes? Another way to test that beyond proposing another explanation for altruism would be if eventually you just found out that there was no such thing as true altruism, right? If you argue from a psychological egoist perspective, and you argue all human behavior is ultimately self-serving, then you could disprove it.
Yeah, but that's like a philosophical claim.
You could provide evidence that hey, it's actually in your best interest to be altruistic because it means that your reputation will increase.
Well, here's the thing, energy, right? Here's the thing. People don't care. the whole point of this conversation is like the rhetorical strategy behind debating, and
we've moved on from that. But you get with the times.
I mean, we got here by talking about the rhetorical strategy behind debating.
Yeah, but right now we're talking about evolutionary psychology. We've kind of detoured.
Well, but I was
going
to chime in really quickly. To what Confluence said, the angle I might take is maybe I would look at some like anthropological thing, like maybe say that like, hey, these people with these genetic markers also happen to like they mostly came from like this region of the world, and like during this time period, I don't know, they were like stuff was like really dirty or something, so they had a lower or a higher threshold for this. Like there are
you could bolster it in that way,
yeah, they're like. But I'm saying that's the way you would sort of have to piece things together. And at the I think that you could probably find enough of those types of things where you could be like, this does make the most sense, or it's the most prevailing theory of the time. But I think even with the altruism thing, like I have no doubt that there are other even evolutionary psychologists who've proposed their own theories, right? So it's like, what are they leaning on for validity, right?
I mean,
it just seems like you'd build a compelling case, and whoever builds the most compelling case, then that's the most compelling case.
But I'm saying a way to falsify theory is by giving a counterexample. So if you could provide a counterexample to the explanation of human behavior as altruistic, for example,
I think that's true,
then you could falsify it.
You can't just say something and then say, unless you can disprove this, therefore this has to be true. Like that feels like what you're asking for. Like I don't feel like I have to come up with a counter.
Okay, but here's the way science works. You have a phenomena, then you create a theory that explains the phenomena that's falsifiable, and then you hold on to it until it's been falsified.
That's why this isn't science, because it's not falsifiable. You just hit the nail on the head.
But it is falsifiable if you give a counterexample, and the way you could give a counterexample, like
that's
I said,
that's not falsifying something. Giving a counterexample is not falsifying, because this would be a counter theory. This would be a counter theory.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How would we know which theory is right?
No, a counterexample that shows the theory is not universally valid. So, for example, if you could show that human behavior is not truly altruistic because it's actually for self-serving reasons, now disprove the idea that we're truly altruistic for evolutionary reasons.
Such a crazy part.
That's an insane argument.
I mean,
no, because that would in principle falsify the theory now.
But it's not like the theory. I understand what you're saying, where it's like, okay,
hold on. If in principle that would falsify the theory, then the theory has already been falsified, because we have evidence that starting from the beginning of humanity, we mostly operated in communities.
So no, that means that would support the theory, because that means that we are altruistic. The theory says that we're altruistic because it allows our kin to pass on our genes. So that would support the theory.
Okay, wait. The way that's formulated. If that's what Dawkins is saying,
here's what Dawkins is saying. He's saying the reason that we
nothing, right?
No, what Dawkins is saying is that the reason that I'm nice to my kids is because my kids will pass on my genes, and so the people who are nice to their kids their kids would pass on their genes, and so this means that our altruism for our kin is essentially selected for by evolution.
Wait, hold on, because this is maybe coming from the other direction, because I don't know where I read this. This is a very long time ago, but I do remember reading one of the phenomenons throughout human history is the fact that we have bred out the most violent people among us. Like back in when there were more smaller tribes and things, it made sense to have a warrior class, and violent people were more accepted in society because they had more utility. And as time went on, this is a proposed evolutionary thing. Then we started putting violent people in prisons, and they started procreating less, and so violent people overall have declined, and we have less violence.
Nah, bro, they just learned how to hide it. We still have the violent people. They're fucking psychopaths and narcissists. They're just
violent people don't exist. If you're hearing what I'm saying there are less violent people overall. And again, it is just a theory. It's 100%. You could just call it bullshit. But what I'm saying is, the altruism thing, I feel on the other side, you could say, well, it's good to be altruistic because you're passing this on to your kids, blah, blah, blah. But I feel you could also have that effect from the angle that I just proposed, where if the violent and people quick to anger and things like that, if that population is falling, then you're automatically going to have a rise in this seeming other trait. So it could, does that make sense? Like it feels like
So what I'm saying is, if you could provide some mechanism by which altruism arises because of this other factor, other than people being nice to their kids, and those kids would then pass on their genes. So people who are nice would eventually, through the generations, have their genes pass on, which confluence.
Yeah, I think he did. Like people in a community that are.
No, but real quick, let me finish my thing. Hold on. What I'm saying is, if you could provide a mechanism which shows that would falsify the theory. So I'm not saying the theory. So that's what I'm saying.
Sounds like you did finish your thing, brother.
But confluence. I wanted to ask: did you say that Dawkins was saying nothing, or I'm confused?
The way you formulated it on just the way you did it, not the way you're saying it now, but originally it just sounded to me that you were just saying that.
I formulated the exact same way as I originally did.
Okay, maybe I just misheard it because it just sounded like you were saying the people that are altruistic are going to pass on their genes. And it's like, well, obviously every genetic thing that we have that has not arisen by chance, obviously it's been passed down genetically and there's like some reason for it. And so it sounded like when you just had
No, that's not what I was saying was that specifically the reason that we're predisposed to altruism is because the people who are altruistic are more likely to take care of their kids.
Now. I'm saying you're asking me why I was saying it originally.
But I'm saying, do you think that's a crazy theory?
It's not a crazy theory. It's just a theory one of probably many theories you could make.
I also feel like that doesn't really address, granted, like even Vigi may disagree, which is totally fine. But if the violent population were to decline over time, would that then not make the appearance that altruism was rising, like just by default? Like I feel like I get what you're saying. I'm addressing it from a different sort of angle, but it's like.
Well, yeah, so that's the thing with biology is that, or with science in general, it's not just true for biology. There's different understandings that people have and different competing theories. And so if that what you're saying is there's enough evidence to support it, it would be a potential falsification of Dawkins's hypothesis. It's just we'd need more evidence to actually make a definitive judgment, not merely like a general thing.
They're all just general things that just look to explain a phenomenon. That's all of evolutionary psychology. That's the problem. And I guarantee you, this is what Testy, I think I already said, there's almost certainly other explanations about why altruism arose. And then we're just going to be, if we look them up, we're just going to be left picking on which one sounds like the best narrative. It's like fucking Life of Pi all over again. Just pick your fucking postmodern view of what you think happened in the past. That's why that's why Podesta is right. That's why his chat still on the screen. It's mostly garbage. But anyway, I have a heart out a long time ago, probably 20 minutes ago, but this is a good discussion. So don't threaten me with a good time. But thank you guys. God bless you, Testy. God bless you, Vigilante. God bless you, Kirk. And take care, guys.
Yeah, have a good one, man.
Later. Yeah.